now. 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, the three-man power trip with you here this afternoon. Off an hour early today. We're done at 5, assuming the Royals don't get banged today. Assuming that the Royals do indeed play tonight in Baltimore. We are off at 5 o'clock. Then we'll send you over to the Royals Radio Network. We've got some Royals baseball to get to here to lead off the show in just a moment. There's a lot to like about what the Royals have done this year. Starting pitching, even with Waka just being kind of last night, starting pitching, been quite good. Offense, coming along. Bobby Witt, great. Michael Garcia, Salvador Perez, couple of home runs each. All good. Bullpen.
You know, if they played 8-inning baseball games, the Royals would really, they'd be in there.
They'd be phenomenal.
They'd be all set. That 9th inning is a bit of a sore spot right now, and it's the new guys, too. It's the reinforcements that they brought in to get the job done who are decidedly not getting the job done. Though, I have another theory about the walk-off home run that the Royals allowed yesterday that I look forward to sharing with all of you.
All right, we'll get ready for that here in just a few minutes as we break down last night's Orioles versus Royals game. Also coming up today here on 580 Sports Talk, we'll get to the vote in Kansas City today in Jackson County, Missouri, and where maybe it's trending. Our final thoughts on the yes or no ballot for the extension or redoing of the 3/8 cent stadium sales tax in Kansas City. Some college basketball last night that was phenomenal. If you've never watched Caitlin Clark, you've always just heard like, oh yeah, she's good. Man, I hope you watched the first game last night of the Women's Elite Eight. Holy cow. She is incredible. Kim Mulkey also quit, which is like not literally quit her job, but quit on trying to win the game, which is wild. We're going to get to that a little bit later on. There was some great basketball last night. Really, really good basketball. Chiefs have a new backup quarterback. You know his name. Carson Wentz is a Chief. Also, a former Baltimore Raven is on a visit with the Chiefs today. We'll tell you who that is.
He's also being recruited by a new Chiefs receiver
who was formerly his teammate in Baltimore. It all comes full circle. So we'll get to that coming up in the 3 o'clock hour today. Jesse Newell is also going to join us in the 3 o'clock hour. We'll talk to him about Carson Wentz and his mock draft from yesterday. 7-round mock draft for Jesse. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. What is wrong with you? Random question Tuesday. Michael Swain will swing by for Jayhawk Weekly. A lot going on in Lawrence for the Kansas Jayhawks. All that plus your texts, 785-272-9429. They are welcome on the Top City Metal Supply text line. And, of course, the YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. You can also find the video stream on our website, 580wibw.com. The Royals lose last night 6-4, and it's way too, I mean, this is barely even small sample size. This is a drop in the bucket. What's the percentage of games the Royals have now played 4 out of 162? That is 2%. 2.5% of games have been completed for the 2024 baseball season. That is not enough to make any sort of declaration about what this Royals team is, can be, etc. I do know, though, across 4 games, for at least 2.5% of this baseball season, the Royals bullpen is not very good. It is, in fact, quite gross. How about this stat from Jack Johnson, who is the host of the Locked On Royals podcast? The Royals, through 4 games, have the 13th best run differential in baseball. They are +2 in run differential, despite being 1-3. They have been winning, tied, or down just 1 going into the 9th inning in all 4 of their games. All that sounds pretty good. The pitching staff in 4 games has given up 15 total runs. 8 of those have come in the 9th inning.
Yeah, it's tough.
Over half your team's runs have been allowed in the 9th inning.
And again, it's all new guys. It was Chris Stratton on opening day. It was Will Smith on Saturday. And last night, it was Nick Anderson in his second Royals appearance after he'd thrown a scoreless inning his first time through, giving up the walk-off home run to Jordan Westberg. That was obviously all pitching was a sore spot for the Royals last year, not just the starting pitching, but the bullpen. The early returns on the starting pitching improvements and upgrades have been positive. Michael Wacha wasn't outstanding last night.
He also only pitched 5 innings, so he got pulled a little early.
Well, you have to keep in mind with Wacha, that he's never been a guy that really gets you deep into games, and he's never been a terribly durable starting pitcher in terms of, like, he's not going to give you 30 starts. He give you 20, and they'll be really good generally. He 25-6 over the last 2 seasons,
something like that.
He pitches effectively when he's out there, but he's never been a guy that you really stretch, or that has been somebody who's like readily available through the course of the full 162. So I am certainly okay with the Royals erring on the side of caution, getting him out after 5 innings. He gave up the home run to Mountcastle. Obviously, it was slipping a little bit for him. But again, what have we talked about? Missed bats, 5 strikeouts in 5 innings and only 1 walk. That is going to play. A 37-11 strikeout to walk ratio as a staff through 4 games.
Excellent.
Is outstanding.
Love it.
That is a marked upgrade for this pitching staff. But it has been the late inning guys, and not just any late inning guys. These aren't guys like we knew were going to be bad. These are guys with track records of success elsewhere who have come to the Royals. Yes. Or in Anderson's case, you traded for that have
paid capital for.
Yes. That have come over and not made a very good first impression in the 9th inning. That's a tough way to start the season, is to have this obvious place of need for improvement look not improved, despite investment in trying to improve it.
Michael Wacha, by the way, for his entire career, averages about 5 1/3 innings per appearance. So this 5 innings is actually
How
right
many
on.
pitches does he average a game? Because I just saw 72 pitches, and that kind of stuck out to me as like not even 80.
That's a good question. I will have to dig further into that.
Because I was thinking you usually take a guy out when he gets into the 80s plus.
Usually, but again, usually you're talking about a guy who, again, a little bit more durable. And like I said, I'm fine, I think, with the Royals erring on, he gives up the 2-run home run in the 5th, so you're starting to lose some effectiveness as it is. Matt Quatrero comes from Tampa Bay, where they're very concerned about the 3rd time through the order penalty.
And the Royals have been very open about the fact that they want to model themselves after Tampa Bay and the way they handle things.
So you are not going to see guys who are not the frontline guys like Reagan's get a chance to face a lineup a 3rd time through all that often. That's going to be more the norm. And if the upside to that is, if less of a workload on Wacha, okay, he's only giving you 5 innings, but he's able to make 25 starts instead of 20 starts, I'd take that trade-off. Happily take that trade-off. Because, if he makes 5 more starts, that's 5 fewer starts for Jordan Lyles or whoever else you want to call it from AAA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if this is how they have to handle Michael Wacha to get the best or the most out of him, then I'm okay with the way that it started this year.
He's your 4th starter. I mean, it is. That's fine. You can live with that. Baltimore got essentially the same thing from Dean Kramer last night. He got 1 more out than Michael Wacha did. Same number of hits, same number of walks, same number of runs allowed, got 1 more out. I mean, you were essentially playing an even game in that regard. The offense in general has been, I think returns have been positive so far. And we have a comment here on YouTube from Christopher who says, hey, Witt and Perez are killing the ball. They're launching it. That Witt home run was majestic last night. He's been great. He has been truly great to start this year.
Hey, Vinny had an RBI yesterday.
Yep. If you can see him start to come along, obviously important. I'm not worried about a slow start. Once we get a month plus in, if Vinny is hitting like 120, okay, I'll be worried. But I'm not concerned about that. The biggest concern for me is the situational hitting. 4 games now. The Royals are 5 for 32. That is very 2018 to 2023 Royals, which, granted, I would expect a lot of this year we're going to have moments where we think, ooh, yeah, that's the failed rebuild Royals right there. That's not great, because you're just on the other side of it. And it is hard for a baseball team, especially a small market team with whatever real or fake constraints they have, to rebuild that quickly. And I understand that, and I'm fine with that. But that is, I think, the next area offensively, not talking about individual performances, but as a group, you got to hit better than 5 of 32 with runners in scoring position. I mean, that's the number one thing for me, because that has been something the Royals have been awful at for years now. So that's the next kind of group improvement that I want to see from this team, is when you get a guy on second base, finding a way to get him in and not having to rely on Witt or Perez or Pasquantino hitting a home run to get guys in.
So the thing I want to point to two things. We'll get to my theory, overarching theory on this season so far. But I want to get to the move that backfired, which was pinch running for Vinny Pasquantino in the late innings.
Yeah.
And
that was bizarre.
Sticking Nick Lofton at first base. Do you know how many games last year that Nick Lofton played at first base for the Omaha Storm Chasers?
10.
3. I'm holding up 3 fingers.
What?
If you can see it on the video. Played 3 games at first base.
I would hold them
year.
up like this. I would hold my 3 middle fingers up.
He played 1 game. He did play some first base for the Royals. He played 8 games at first, started 4 for the Royals last year when they called him up. That was actually the position he played the most in terms of games played when they called him up at the end of last year. But this is not his natural position. He is still very much new to first base. And we've all seen Moneyball, right? When Billy Bean tells Scott Hatteberg first base isn't that hard, and Ron Washington interrupts him and says, it's incredibly hard. Tell him, Wash. No, it's incredibly hard. It looked hard when Nick Lofton tried to play first base last night. It wasn't the best throw Bobby Witt Jr.'s ever made, but that's a play you have to make if you're a major league first baseman, and Lofton didn't make it, and it cost him the go-ahead run, which meant that the Royals weren't able to protect a lead in the 9th inning after they scored, after they got the 2 stolen bases from Dairon Blanco. That's the upside of pinch running, right? Like, they do have some real speed on the bench, and Blanco stealing the 2 bags, getting in position for the game-tying sacrifice fly, like, that was good. That felt like 2013 through 2017 competitive Royals, right? Speed and contact and manufacturing a run to get back in a ball game. That felt good. That felt familiar. That should have been the go-ahead run if you had Vinny Pasquantino still over there at first base. And look, I'm not saying that, it was a bad decision, or I'm not ripping Matt Quatrero here. This was a move that was defensible. It just didn't pay off because Nick Lofton's still brand new to playing that defensive position. That's the kind of thing that tends to happen to teams that are in a losing funk, which the Royals have been for, half a decade now? Like, you sometimes you feel like you just can't push the right button. And so far in the late innings, any button that Matt Quatrero pushes has kind of felt like the wrong one. All right, you ready for my overarching theory of baseball so far in 2024?
I am, yes.
Did you?
Also, for what it's worth, it's been over half a decade at this point.
Yes, it has been over half a decade.
We have passed that threshold.
Yeah, we're year 7 of a 5-year plan.
Yeah, going great.
Did you see Nick Anderson's reaction to that ball leaving the ballpark? Jordan Westberg's go-ahead home run. Jordan Westberg is, I think, going to be a very good major league player. I don't know if it's going to be in Baltimore. He might get boxed out a little bit with Jackson Holiday on the way and Gunnar Henderson already there. He might get boxed out of playing time a little bit, but I think Jordan Westberg is going to be a good player. He's going to play in the league a long time. He hit a backspin fly ball to the opposite field that left the yard. And if you saw Nick Anderson's reaction, that was not just, I can't believe we lost the game. That was an, I can't believe that ball left the park look on Nick Anderson's face.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Ball's juiced, guys. We've got the Titleist Pro V1s back in the bags. I think the ball has been tampered with once again by Major League Baseball. I think Rob Manfred's got his finger and his thumb on the scale when it comes to the playing equipment, and I think we're back to the juice balls. I honest to goodness do. I've watched a lot of games. I've seen how balls are carrying. I go back to the first home run of the season, which coincidentally also in Baltimore. Mike Trout hitting that home run off of Corbin Burns. Did he react to you like somebody who had hit the ball out of the park? He reacted to me like somebody who thought he flied out to end the inning, and that ball cleared the fence by plenty. It doesn't bring me joy to float this theory, but I know Major League Baseball can pick and choose which balls they use. And I think they've got the Pro V1s back in the bag. I think the ball is juiced to start 2024.
A lot of Twitter searches do seem to agree with you. Looking that up right now, I mean, it's certainly possible. That's out. I wouldn't be surprised.
You know what would be a good thing to do though? I'm gonna wrap this around to being a positive for the Royals. You know what would be a good thing to do if the ball's juiced? If you've got a ball, if you got a ball that's carrying, what should you do with it?
hit it hard and out of the park.
Hit it in the air.
Hit it in the air, yeah.
Here are a list of the teams with the lowest ground ball rates on contact to start this season. Number 1 is the Cleveland Guardians, which is actually kind of hilarious because the Guardians don't have any power hitters on that roster. Like Josh Naylor, Bo Naylor, Josh Bell, and Jose Ramirez. But they don't even have Josh Bell anymore, so I don't know why I said his name. I got him confused with Josh Naylor. They don't have a ton of power hitters. They got a bunch of guys who all could benefit from hitting the ball on the ground, but they are hitting the fewest ground balls of any team in the major leagues right now. That's very funny. Anyway, Cleveland, St. Louis, the Mets, winless, by the way, the Dodgers, the Reds, the Royals. The Royals are hitting the 6th fewest ground balls of any team in baseball. This is a pretty big difference between what we have come to know as a Royals offense, which is a lot of balls, line moving, right? Make contact. Any contact is good contact. Hit it on the ground, that's fine. We'll advance a runner. We'll put some runners in motion. Keep the line moving. I have said that there is some power potential on this team, and if the balls are hinky, that might mean there's more power potential yet to be unlocked with this team. So the thing to do is hit the ball in the air. Again, small sample size. Things tend to even out over 162 games. But early on, the Royals are hitting the ball in the air and not on the ground. That's good. That's conducive for power. That's conducive for more run scoring. And I think that will bear watching moving forward, especially if my theory is correct. And Rob Manfred has reintroduced the TaylorMades.
We can get it once we have more data and can further prove that that's the case. I have some fairly strong thoughts about the integrity of the game. We can get to it at a future date. But the point I want to add here as well, to circle back, to tie back to the point about the Royals striking out more batters. If you are going to play with a ball that is easier to hit out of the park and to hit really far, and that will lead to an increase in scoring runs, you know what is more valuable than ever as a pitcher? To miss bats, to get guys to swing and miss, to not let those balls be put in play at all. So if the Royals are striking guys out at a much higher clip, that is going to be more conducive to winning over the course of time. So I would definitely agree with that. Yeah. So that's, again, if you're going to be in that situation and you know you have to adjust to it, and I'm sure the players know at this point, I'm sure it does not take very long, like a coach in a basketball game that just knows sometimes, you so-and-so doesn't have it today. This matchup ain't going to work. And you play him for 2 minutes, then pull him and sit him for the rest of the game. I'm sure pitchers already know because they know the weight of the ball and the stickiness or whatever. Batters know. They can tell from the force at which the ball hits the bat when they put the barrel on it. I'm sure everybody already knows whether it is or isn't juiced at this point. So if you're the Royals, you've got to keep being in a position where you can strike guys out to get more outs, because the pitching staff of recent years, or when Brady Singer has gone through his lulls, etc., you're not going to win a whole lot of games like that if you're letting guys make that much contact if the ball is flying out like it has so far this year. Coming up on the other side of this break, the most recent notes and thoughts on the stadium tax vote in Kansas City today. Also, the Women's Elite Eight last night was awesome. We're going to get to some of that. We got Chiefs news later on in the show. We will be joined by Jesse Newell in the 3 o'clock hour, Michael Swain in the 4 o'clock hour. So much to get to on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. A couple thoughts here from the YouTube comment stream. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find the video stream of the show. From JB says, there's actual pieces on this team now. These guys are fun to watch, as Michael Garcia as well. If only we did roster construction and minor league farm system building better. That's on JJ and Sherman. Yeah, that's the next thing this Royals team needs. And you mentioned it the other day previewing the season. Organizational depth beyond just 26-man roster depth. Like if you have an injury or a rash of injuries or make a trade or whatever, do you have guys in Omaha who you can call up who can reasonably play for you? And right now the answer is no.
And that really slipped in the end of the Dayton Moore tenure. And unfortunately, that's the kind of thing that you get behind, you can't catch up overnight.
No,
there's no catching up in 1 year you can do. That's going to take you a couple of years to get you where you need to be. And if you can develop them a little better in the minor leagues too, that is the only way to reasonably accelerate the process. But it's going to be another year or so, and another high draft pick, a year of high draft picks this year that will hopefully get the Royals organizationally back into at least the middle tier. Right now, they've been a bottom tier farm system. They were even a bottom tier farm system when they had Bobby Witt Jr. coming up, and
which is wild.
Which is wild to think about. Yeah. So to get back into the middle tier and the upper tier, unfortunately, is going to take at least another year or two for the Royals to get there. There's no quick fix, and it remains to be seen if JJ Piccolo and the current minor league development apparatus is going to be good enough to get that done. And the answer might be no, but we're not going to reasonably know for another, again, year or two.
Yeah, and as a fan of a team that went through that a couple of years ago, so when the Nats were good, they were just trading away their farm system assets left and right. And then in 2020, when they played the shortened season and were really bad, and then in 2021, there was nothing there. It was so depleted.
Mm-hmm.
And they just said, let's rebuild. So,
and I mean, look, it works. The Cubs got rid of a top 5 prospect in all of baseball when they won the World Series to go get Aroldis Chapman, and that would have been a really nice thing for the Royals to have been able to do, is take some minor league depth, and they could have maybe traded for a younger, cost-controlled starting pitcher. Like they really wanted one of the Marlins guys. Like the Marlins were open for business this offseason. Mm-hmm.
And there was that report that the Royals were interested in Jesus Luzardo, their young left-hander. And the Marlins said, yeah, well, we want Vinny Pasquantino in return. And the Royals reasonably wouldn't go there, wouldn't trade Vinny for Luzardo. A fascinating thought exercise, but I don't blame the Royals for not making that trade. But if they'd had a little bit more farm system depth and said, okay, we're not going to give you our projected big league first baseman, but, if we had a couple top 100 prospects we could give you instead, then maybe you get that deal done. And then maybe Jesus Luzardo is your number 3 starter today, or your number 2. And you feel really, really good about this starting pitching rotation without having to trade from your major league depth. Yep. So, yeah, that's where it has hurt the Royals as well.
Going on in Kansas City on the Missouri side of the state line today is I don't even know what ballot proposition it is or what the official wording of it is, but it's the vote today to extend or to redo and extend the 3/8 cent sales tax that will go toward stadium building and financing, reparations, etc., in Kansas City for the Chiefs and for the Royals, Arrowhead Stadium, and what would be the new downtown ballpark for the Royals. According to a poll from KSHB, which is the NBC affiliate in Kansas City, if you don't know, of the people they reached out to, that they polled saying, where are you going to vote? 47% said yes, which would be, yes, we will extend or renew the sales tax for another 40 years. 46% said they would vote no. A 1 percentage point difference between yes and no. So if you do the math on there, there's still 7% of people they asked who did not give a clear answer, chose not to answer, whatever. This is obviously just a sample. This is not obviously everyone who is going to end up voting here. I am surprised that it is this close. I will put this caveat out there. If you're listening in Jackson County, and I know we've got listeners across the Kansas City area, including some on the Missouri side of the border. I am not saying this because I am trying to influence you how to vote. I do not live in Jackson County. I do not live in Missouri, period. I live several counties west of the state line, in fact. So it does not really matter what I think because I'm not voting on it, just like you guys are not voting on it. I'm just sharing my opinion. I would not give the Hunt family or John Sherman a single cent for anything. If they were like, hey, we're going to try to raise $10 total from the entire community to go get like new uniforms for our team. We need $10. I would say, okay, you've got $10. Go do it yourself. Like, I'm not giving John Sherman a penny. I am sure as hell not giving the Hunt family a single red cent. And that's not like I disagree with their politics. No, I disagree with some things that they have done in the public light with money. You can do that research yourself. This is not the time or place to discuss that. I do not feel it is my responsibility to give billionaires more money to build stadiums that do not benefit me. They do not. And especially because, and you've heard me talk about this with the KU stadium thing for years. I go to a stadium to watch a game. I don't care if there is like 400 different places where I can grab 19 different hard seltzers. Like, I do not care. All I care about is that I can sit down and watch the game. That is what matters to me. Is concrete going to fall on my head? No. Okay. Stadium's great. There's nothing wrong with the K. There is quite literally nothing wrong with the K. You could go and have the time of your life Thursday. We got tickets to give away for Friday's game. You could go Friday, have a safe, fun time. What are the downsides? Oh, you have to park kind of far from downtown. And there's no public transit to get there, which is a Kansas City municipal problem. The K itself is completely fine. So if John Sherman, and it is his right because he owns the team, if he wants to move him downtown, fine. Or to Clay County over to the Kansas side, so be it. I don't want a single cent of mine to go toward it because it is not my responsibility.
I agree with you there. I mean, obviously, as a DC fan, I told you guys about it. We talked about it a little bit last week, dealing with it with the Capitals and Wizards. Nothing's wrong with Capital One Arena.
Yeah.
They just got a bunch of upgrades to make money for upgrades to make sure they can use it for another 30 years.
If they want to do it, that is totally fine. I get it. And if you are going to vote yes on this, I get it. Like, if you're saying, oh, we can't have them leave Kansas City, Missouri. They got to be in Jackson County. We've got this deal. They are Jackson County, Kansas City's team. They can't leave. I get it. I 100% understand, and I'm not going to hold that against anyone. I honest to God mean that. I just would not vote yes for this. I think the plan sucks. I think it was hastily thrown together. I think, frankly, the narratives that the Vote Yes committee is pushing out publicly are terrible at best and genuinely intentionally misleading at worst, including today, the allegations that if you're wearing Chiefs and Royals stuff, they can't turn you away. We've heard stories of them turning you away. Is that true? Because I haven't heard a word about that. Give me proof. Give me proof. Vote Yes committee. Show me a person who was turned away from a voting station because they were wearing Chiefs or Royals gear. When you show me that, I will believe it. Now, some people are like, well, Sam Mellinger gave up journalism to shill for the Royals. He is not a source. He is a PR man. Okay? So I think the plan is bad. I would not give these guys my money. That is my own personal belief. I understand if anyone else feels differently. I would not vote yes on this, personally.
So I think a lot of the objection to this is very much conscientious objection in the sense that the plan is not well elucidated. There has been like a lot of outright lying that's been done. And let's be clear. Most of the objectionable stuff is coming from John Sherman and the Royals here. It's been the Royals who have said, yeah, we got to get out of the K. It's crumbling. The concrete is bad. And when people said, oh, it's bad because it was built the same time as Arrowhead and the concrete over there seems to be fine. The Hunts aren't complaining about the concrete at Arrowhead Stadium. Why is the concrete at the K bad? And you know what they haven't talked about for a long time since people pressed them on that? The concrete at Coffin Stadium. Where nobody's bringing up the concrete anymore. Because that was nonsense. It was nonsense from the beginning. Yep. You walked around that ballpark. There are not chunks of concrete falling on you when you sit at the club level. It's not happening. Maybe that's happened at like Wrigley Field, but
it did actually
happen at Wrigley Field. But that place is 100 years old.
Right. And wasn't just refurbished 15 years ago.
Exactly. So there has been a lot of disingenuousness and flat out lying at worst that has come from the Royals side of this. And a lot of questions that have gone unanswered about what exactly is the community benefit beyond a glittering palace to watch baseball in, which, I mean, that's not nothing. Look, I understand like the rationale for voting yes is I don't mind a 3/8 cent sales tax if it means it is more convenient for me to go see my favorite teams in upgraded, in the Royals case, brand new stadiums. I think a new stadium would be neat. I think a downtown stadium would be great fun. I would look forward to watching a game and then going to Power and Light afterwards instead of sitting in traffic trying to get out of the stadium and maybe going to the Denny's or whatever it is that's across Blue Springs Parkway there. I get a yes vote, honest to goodness, because even a yes vote in a situation like this doesn't mean, I'm a bootlicker. I love the taste of boot, and I want to give billionaires my hard-earned money. That's what I'm in it for. No, you're in it because you're a sports fan, and you want to root for your guys in stadiums that are in your hometown or that are close to your home or in your home county, I guess, in this case. I understand the compulsion to vote yes. I also very much understand the compulsion to vote no, and I think it is stronger here than it has been in a lot of other situations like this, where a lot of these stadium measures pass and pass with flying colors.
Right.
The reason that this one has been so hotly contested, and it is still very much up in the air as to whether it is going to pass or not, has been the community relations side of it. The Royals have not covered themselves in glory on that front, and people who are against this, Kansas City's got a structure of grassroots political organizing to get people to not vote for this stuff, to get people to be more knowledgeable about the negative impacts of something like this. The KC Tenants folks, they've gotten some major positive political wins in Kansas City, in Jackson County. They are against this. They are encouraging people to vote against this. And their reasons for voting no are very well elucidated. So I get wherever anybody, this is not one of those things where I am virulently for or virulently against. I understand genuinely both sides of this issue. My gut says it's going to pass because most of these things pass, but it's going to be a lot closer than I think a lot of these ballot measures end up being when the final votes are counted. And the Royals will have nobody to blame for sweating today out but themselves. I don't even look at this so much as the Chiefs issue because the Chiefs are happy to stay in Arrowhead. At the end of the day, I think they want to be in Arrowhead. They like being there. They like the tailgate culture.
Well, and as we have addressed on this show before, the mayor of Kansas City, Quentin Lucas, straight up, he has said out loud, we will get the governor involved if the Chiefs think about moving. Nothing. They are going to get whatever they want, which that's their own thing, but they're going to get whatever they want.
This, to me, the reason this has been so hotly debated and why there is so much sentiment towards no, to the point where the Royals turned their opening weekend of TV broadcast into vote yes propaganda, that's all on John Sherman. And I think he has handled this extremely poorly.
I agree.
And in a way that is really disappointing, and I think casts a lot of doubt on just how good an owner he's going to be, how good of a public steward he's going to be with this public trust that is a professional baseball team. That's something that is so important to the community and so important to the city and the county. I still do think it's going to pass. And if it does, great, because you will like downtown baseball in Kansas City. Speaking from experience, growing up where downtown baseball is played in Denver, Colorado, you'll love it. You will. I'm sure it'll be
great.
State-of-the-art ballpark and great post-game and pre-game entertainment options. It will be a nice thing and potentially a public good.
I think too. Sorry to break in there, but we've seen these things come out about for their ballpark about having to take away businesses. While it's a negative now, your businesses will build up around the ballpark, and in 15 years it'll look totally different and probably be a net positive.
Here's the thing, though: who owns those businesses? Who's going to own those businesses that spring up around the ballpark? John Sherman?
Not necessarily.
Necessarily.
Based on my knowledge of Wrigley Field,
there's
the Ricketts own all of that.
Yes, the Monforts own everything around Coors Field. They're trying to tear down El Chapultepec, which is a very famous jazz club that was lame. 2 blocks from the park, and they want to get rid of it. They've already closed it. Now they want to tear the building down. It's garbage. It sucks. So yes, all of that stuff, there's a Shake Shack 2 blocks from the ballpark. Sick. That's going to be owned by John Sherman. And John Sherman's going to be the landlord of everything that goes on over there. That's the blueprint that they're following. And it doesn't feel good to be not a billionaire and to hand a billionaire money.
And that's exactly like the general point, and more well put than I was trying to get out there earlier, is that, look, if you're going to make this happen, in the grand scheme of things, this does not affect me. Because, again, none of us live in Jackson County. I know, again, people who listen to this show live in Jackson County or have interests in Jackson County, Missouri. But if we're going to go to a game, it's a drive for us anyway, or, a carpool or whatever anyway. Does not matter all that much to me in the long run. And if the Royals as an organization want to put up Royalsville in what is currently the Crossroads, that's fine. So be it. I'm sure it will be a great ballpark and it will be a fun experience. And to be able to go from day baseball to then walk across the interstate on the walkway to spend your late afternoon at Johnny's and P&L and then go to a concert that night at the T-Mobile Center, that sounds awesome. That sounds like a great experience. I just don't believe it should be, if I was someone who lived there, if I was a resident, I do not think it should be my responsibility to fund something that I know this guy can pay for.
Yeah.
And if he can't pay for it, that's fine. But then maybe you shouldn't have bought the Kansas City Royals, because for normal people, if I can't buy a car, and I like my Nissan SUV. I like it quite a bit. Let's say I want to upgrade. I've really wanted a truck forever. I want to go get a truck. I want to get a big old King Ranch, okay? I want to get a big old guy like that. But I can't afford it. So what do? Do I say, hey, Dan, I'm going to buy a truck. Can you Venmo me? Spencer, I'm going to buy a truck. I'll take you guys to lunch. You can ride shotgun. So can you Venmo me? No, I don't buy the truck because I can't afford it.
You can sit in the truck. You can put things in the back of the truck if you need
Heck,
to.
you could even rent the truck.
Yeah, but I own it still. But you guys are going to help me out. That's not how that works. So if John Sherman is trying to say, well, I can't afford this. Well, John, that's not my problem. And that's where I come down on this and how I feel about this. And if it passes, so be it. Again, it's not really going to matter in the long run to me. I got to drive all the way out there if I'm going to go to the K anyway. It's going to save me 10 minutes. So what? But I just don't think it should be I'm talking collective, our responsibility to fund something that someone else has already proven they should be able to fund. Let's get to the actual sports, shall we? Coming up on the other side of this break, there was some awesome college basketball last night. We'll break that down. We've got some Chiefs talk to get to later on in the show. This is 580 Sports Talk. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of the show today, Michael Swain from Fog.net and 24/7 Sports is going to join us for Jayhawk Weekly. Plenty of KU news to get to. new commit through the transfer portal, Riley Kugel. That was news yesterday. Zeke Mayo, the Lawrence native, former Summit League Player of the Year at South Dakota State. He is in Lawrence this week. Reportedly, there is a certain former classmate of his from Lawrence High who may or may not be the best athlete on campus right now at KU, who is helping putting on the full court press to recruit Zeke Mayo to Lawrence. So we'll talk to Michael about that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today. Of course, the Final Four is still several days away. This is the worst part of the tournament because we go from Thursday to Sunday, 3 days off, Thursday to Sunday, to now a whole week off before we get games again, or 6 days off before we get games again.
And there's only 4 teams left, so there's only those storylines instead of having like 16 storylines you can follow for the dead week between round 2 and the Sweet 16. Now you're just down to 4.
Hey, you guys, you were just talking about the potential players coming to KU. One already committed, one in Lawrence this week. Did you see who said he was never leaving and posted that on social media?
Yes, this was just moments ago.
Yeah, KJ Adams.
Which,
not shocking.
Yeah, unless you are just addicted to the message boards and really need to get outside a little bit, this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. That group, not including me, I would like to make that clear, not including me getting obsessed with the message boards again. There's this move to really either bench or just full out replace him and DeJuan Harris. Let's be realistic, guys. Do you know who Bill Self's 2 favorite players on this team probably are? KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris. Those guys aren't going anywhere. So, no, it's good. I love KJ Adams, and I'm glad he's going to spend his final year at KU as well. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. There was some great college basketball last night, though. Did you guys both watch the 2 Elite 8 games from the women's tournament last night?
Yes, I did.
A big chunk of both of them, yeah.
The LSU versus Iowa game, I'm honestly surprised that was not I know it's because of where they were located. One was on the East Coast, one was on the West Coast. You would have thought, though, if it all was equal, Iowa would have been the second game because you had the rematch of the national championship game.
If you could have manipulated it in such a way.
ESPN wanted that.
Oh, yeah. And it lived up to the billing. It was a great game.
How often does that happen? How often do we get a sporting event that you wait a certain amount of time for and then it lives up to the hype and then some?
No, it was...
The first quarter felt like an entire basketball game.
It did. And the stars shone out. I honestly, like Angel Reese for LSU, and people are weird about her, and I'm not going to get into that. That's not worth our time. She's a hell of a player. She's a really, really good college basketball player. She went for 17 and 20 before fouling out.
On a bad ankle, too. She rolled her ankle in the first... I mean, if you watch the game, she took over the first quarter on both ends in a way that is rare to see a player do. And she was in total command, and LSU had the lead. And then she tweaked her ankle, and she wasn't the same player after that. She wasn't quite as explosive around the boards. Neither her or Anissa Morrow could score around the rim. That was LSU's big advantage in this game, was supposed to be their inside game. And neither Reese or Morrow could make a shot from about the second quarter onward, and that really hurt LSU's chances. But Angel Reese, like, y'all see Ben Wallace? Like, remember Ben Wallace from the Pistons when they were winning championships in the 2000s? That's who Angel Reese is. Undersized, maybe, for her position. Like, she'll go up against players who are 6'6", 6'7" at center, like Cardoso for South Carolina, 6'7", Ayoka Lee's 6'6". Like, most post players in women's college basketball, 6'5", 6'7". She's only 6'3". And yet she can dominate the interior and dominate the glass and dominate as a defender and get up and down the floor and be a force in transition. It reminded me of what it was like watching Ben Wallace. She is an awesome player. And we turned we turned her and Caitlin Clark kind of into caricatures after last year's national championship game. When you have an athlete get that big, they almost turn into caricatures of themselves. You got to really watch them play a game to see, oh, wait a minute. This isn't just like a meme, or this isn't just like a target of internet ire. This is a fabulous basketball player. And Angel Reese showed out even on one leg, one good ankle last night. Even in defeat, she was the second best player on the court.
See,
that was the problem.
Can I give you a really hot take? I think she was the third best player on the court. Like, she was awesome. She was great. There's no denying how great she was. You know who impressed me the most for LSU? Flau'jae Johnson is incredible. She's awesome. And I think the reason she stood out in this game is because Iowa just doesn't have size. Hannah Stolke is their best post, and I feel like I've only ever caught her on bad days where she doesn't look all that impressive. I thought Flau'jae Johnson was awesome, though. She should have been on Caitlin Clark from the beginning. Instead, Kim Mulkey decided to put her worst defender on the best player in the country for the whole game. And I know that Johnson got in foul trouble. I know Poa got in foul trouble, too. That was hard. Those are your two best perimeter defenders. Do anything. Do literally anything else, because Haley Van Lith there was no chance. Once Caitlin Clark got hot in that third quarter, it was game over. She had no chance.
Well, she's 5 inches shorter than Caitlin Clark and not as athletic as Caitlin Clark, and also maybe dealing with an illness presently. And when you add all of those things up against a player who's already not really guardable, you're going to have a really bad time. Haley Van Lith is going to carry the psychological scars of what Caitlin Clark did to her last night for a very long time in wherever her basketball career takes her from now on. 41, 7, and 12 in an Elite Eight game is an all-time performance. And when you add in the revenge factor of it being against the team that frustrated you and beat you in the national title game last year, it's an all-time sports performance, period. And Kim Mulkey, who is many things, but one of those things is a hell of a coach. And another one of those things was a hell of a player in her own right.
She was.
Like, Kim Mulkey was a fabulous college basketball player at Louisiana Tech. Watching her in the post-game press conference last night, you could see when she talked about Caitlin Clark, you could see in her eyes, game recognizing game. You could see and you could hear in her voice the admiration that she very clearly had for the player who just devastated her defending champs and knocked them out of the tournament, ended their season. It was a virtuoso Caitlin Clark performance.
Reminded me a little bit of, it would have been the 20 and 21 season when Oklahoma State came to KU and lost. And it was, remember, they only got like 2,500 people in the building in those games. And the few fans that were there at Allen Fieldhouse chanted "overrated" at Cade Cunningham. And Bill Self was legitimately pissed off in the post game. It's like, our fans should know better. Like, come on, they can be the best player in the draft. He's the best player in the country. What are we doing? That's what Kim Mulkey made me think of last night. Also, how about this stat? This is from Mike Monaco of ESPN. There have been 2 NCAA tournament games ever where a player had 40 and 10. Caitlin Clark, 40 points and 10 assists. Caitlin Clark last night and Caitlin Clark in last year's Elite Eight against Louisville. What is the common denominator between those two opponents?
Haley Van Lith.
And she didn't guard Caitlin Clark one-on-one the entirety of last year's game, but that is one thing that stands. I mean, I feel bad for her. She's getting dumped on like crazy. This is an example of, it's not just men's basketball and football where sometimes the transfer portal is not always the right answer. Because she went from a team where she was the star and had the perfect surrounding cast at Louisville to being third banana when she's a ball-dominant guard and not a true number one. Like, that was a nightmare transfer for her. And Caitlin Clark picked it apart because she's incredible.
And now we get her and Paige Beckers in the national semifinals. And
who was also awesome last night.
Yes, I'm not going to get a chance to flesh this out because we're going to have to go to break. But Paige Beckers was supposed to be the one in that class of 2020. Yeah. And she had some injuries, missed all of last season, kind of got derailed a little bit. And Caitlin Clark surpassed her, obviously, on an all-time scale. But they get to face each other again in the national semifinal. I'll have the TV on for that one, that's for sure.
We'll talk some men's college hoops later on with Michael Swain. But coming up after the news, we'll talk some Chiefs right back here on 580 Sports Talk.
We'll be right back.
Wow, 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis here with you. We're talking plenty of Chiefs in this 3 o'clock hour of the show, including some breaking news we're going to get to here in just a matter of moments. We'll also be joined by Jesse Newell. He's going to join us coming up a little bit later on in the hour to talk about this new Chiefs news, as well as his 7-round mock draft from yesterday. We've also got our Random Question Tuesday for this week. We will take your YouTube comments. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. We would love for you to go and find us on YouTube. Hang out with us. Comment section is rolling and live throughout the day today. You can also find a place to leave your thoughts on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers, because Top City Metal will cut the exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel that you need tailored to your project's specifications. So start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. Let's get right into it with the breaking Kansas City Chiefs news. This just in. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's a great bit. I'm so glad you brought that to my attention last week. Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Like 2 weeks ago at this point.
God, time is fake. It is a social construct. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back on a 1-year deal. Why? Yeah, that's my big question. So the Chiefs had a visit with J.K. Dobbins today, the former Ohio State standout. He was really good with the Ravens for the 10 games he played there between his 2 torn ACLs. He had an Achilles injury, I think, too. I mean, he was injured so much. He's a good player. He was on a visit in Kansas City today, and I thought that he was going to end up there. Maybe he still does. I don't know. I don't get this one, to be completely honest with you. And it's nothing personal against Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's just not all that great. I guess if he's RB3, you can live with that,
and maybe that's where they're trending. I mean, they still have J.K. Dobbins in the building today for a visit, the former Raven, who unfortunately has been unable to stay healthy. He's been really good when he's been on the field. I am just surprised, because we have talked for 2 years as though Clyde Edwards-Helaire's roster spot has been hanging by a thread, and now he's coming back for another year. I'd be curious as to what the terms are, how close this is to like vet minimum money.
Yeah.
And if maybe it's just an insurance policy. Haven't heard a word about Jet McKinnon. If he's even going to play football anymore, or if he's just going to call it a career, which I think is certainly possible. But no, I would not have guessed that this would happen. I would have thought that would have been thanks for the memories, Clyde. But he's back.
I mean, it's not if we're talking about running back number 3, it's not that big of a deal. I'm surprised, man. I mean, he's got not a whole lot of any burst or juice or anything like that. What does he do well?
Know the offense.
Yeah.
And maybe that's enough. If you're talking about running back 3, maybe that's enough. Maybe that's fine.
I mean, my only thought here is, as Dan alluded to, was you bring him back in case J.K. Dobbins has injuries. Like, he's still injury prone. Like, something happens in the preseason, you have a guy that knows.
Making a leap to assume Dobbins is running back too, but if he is, then
I would hope he is.
That would be a great addition. Like, honestly, I would like that fit in Kansas City a lot. Even with the injury history, I would like the addition quite a bit. But can you really have Pacheco and then an injury-prone running back 2 and then injury-prone running back 3? Like, do you really feel good about Dobbins and Clyde being on the same team as your backup running backs? It's strange to me.
I guess the theory is that you always have someone. Then if someone's injured, you've got another guy, and you can move them in and out. And realistically here, J.K. Dobbins, if the Chiefs end up signing him, he's, again, in town in Kansas City today. If they end up signing him, he's not going to get paid all that much. I can't imagine Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to get, $7 million or something. I assume it's going to be closer to vet minimum than nothing, than a maximum kind of deal. So it's fairly affordable. And if you don't like what it looks like in the end, or Dobbins gets too hurt, or Clyde doesn't have anything left in the tank, you elevate Deneric Prince from the practice squad. And that's your third running back.
It does seem it would make it a lot less likely now that the Chiefs draft a running back.
I would agree. We'll ask Jesse Newell about that coming up when we talk to him in just about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes.
I think that, unfortunately, putting Rasheen Ali on the radar of a top 30 visit, I know a lot of teams do top 30 visits, especially being close to the draft process last year. They do them for guys that they think are going to be undrafted guys, and they want to have already had them in the building. Instead of trying them out, they're like legit.
Yeah, I mean, it's valuable when you're battling for undrafted free agents where you've got to get deals done right away.
Yeah.
That's valuable to do.
Like, I know that last year from the process with, covering Tyson Bagent and stuff, where he went on these visits when they were like, hey, if you slip out, like we're a team that would like to sign you kind of thing after.
Yeah, no, exactly. And maybe Dobbins doesn't end up signing, and then it's all a moot point. They do end up just going with a rookie instead. And you go with Pacheco, rookie, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's your three running backs. And you've got a practice squad guy, and you're set. Maybe that's what ends up happening here. I'm more than anything just surprised. I didn't think this was possible.
Think the whole Chiefs Twitter is.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of Chiefs fans are. He did carry the ball a little bit more at the end of last season. He did have a role near the end of the year. Now, granted, that's also because McKinnon got hurt.
Scored a really cool touchdown against the Patriots.
That's true. I was also surprised by that.
So, played in 15 games this past season after only having played in 10 in each of the previous 2 years. So, he was more available this last year than he had been. But career worst, 3.2 yards per carry. And a career best, 11 yards per reception. He had that one really long one, that 48-yard screen. Who was that against? The Bills or...
We can look that up real quick. I know what play you're talking about.
Yeah, maybe that was the Patriots. Maybe it was just one big game against the Patriots.
I think you're right. I think that was the Patriots game.
Where all those good things happened for him. He has scored 19 touchdowns in 4 seasons. He doesn't fumble. He's only fumbled twice in his career.
And weren't they in back-to-back weeks?
I think so. It was the one that cost him the Ravens game back in 2021.
Yeah, and it was, I think, the next week as well he had one.
They were both.
Or it was the week before. Yeah.
They were both in 2021. Yeah. So, yeah, when you talk about burst, like we're not looking at right now at a running back who appears to have much of that left, which is a wild thing to say about a guy who's 25. You should be in your athletic prime, but, the running backs age differently. The tread on the tires goes a little faster, especially when you play as much as he did at LSU. But yeah, to go from a steady 4.5 yards per carry to 3 yards a carry last year, 3.2 yards per carry, it does. It makes you wonder if maybe that's just gone and what is he really giving you?
Yeah, that's certainly worth wondering. And again, it's not the worst thing. If he's your third running back, so what? That's fine. It's just a surprise.
And if he wasn't a good teammate, if he wasn't somebody that they liked having around, this doesn't happen.
Like, the guys like him.
Yeah, if they were happy to see the back of him, they would have, wished him well. He would have known what the score was, like Willie Gay did. And that's not to say that Willie Gay is a bad teammate, but Willie Gay knew and tweeted as much that as soon as last season ended, he wasn't going to be a Chief anymore. That he either read the writing on the wall or the writing was read to him. For Clyde Edwards-Helaire to come back, that is a suggestion to me that they see value in him. And look, that's their livelihood. That's their job. Maybe they're better at seeing what he's good at than we are. That's entirely possible. In fact, I would even call it probable.
What if they had J.K. Dobbins in for a visit today? They talked numbers and it wasn't good, and then they already got their guy.
That's entirely possible. That's a very possible outcome that occurred today. I would not be surprised at all if that was the case.
Or the injury risks they don't want to take. Like, there's a multitude of things that could be there.
No, you're 100% right about that. The other addition the Chiefs are reportedly making, this was first reported last night by Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report. Chiefs have a new backup quarterback. It's Carson Wentz. So, look, if Mahomes gets hurt, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
The old Tom Moore story, right?
Right.
If Mahomes gets hurt, we're bleeped, and we don't practice bleeped.
Right, and that's fine. I think of him as a different quarterback, certainly than Matt Moore and Chad Henne, who were very much, they're not going to push it. They're going to make the right decision. They are going to be hyper safe with the ball. I think both of those dudes were better than Blaine Gabbert, but Gabbert at this point in his career, he knows what he is as well. He's a backup. You're in there to not screw up more than you are to go do anything else. Wentz is, I think, more in the Gabbert camp. He's a big dude. He's got a big arm. He has always been loose with the football, which is what you are very concerned about with a backup quarterback. Very concerned about that with a backup. However, in limited time last year, he actually was decent with the Rams. He won a game as the starting quarterback for the Rams in Week 18 this past season, in fact, against many backups against the 49ers. But still, I went back and I watched a little of that game last night after this news broke, and I thought, I mean, there's something there. As a backup, that's okay. You've got to be able to coach the turnovers out of him, though, because that is the one thing that you cannot live with if you're a backup quarterback, is turning the ball over.
Well, we've never really seen him operate as a backup quarterback, right? Like the emergency start he got, not even an emergency. It was Week 18 and Matt Stafford was benched. That was a choice that Sean McVay made. So he got to start Week 18 last year for the Rams. That's really the first time that Carson Wentz has ever, I would say, even played a season in his career where he was not the intended starting quarterback, because he was the guy for 5 years in Philadelphia. He started all 17 games for the Colts in 2021. Washington brought him in to be the guy that lasted 7 starts. So last year was the first time we've ever seen Carson Wentz back up. Like, this is the new phase of Carson Wentz's career. And when you get to that new phase, maybe it's a little easier to operate like you want the backup quarterback to operate. And that is like the platonic ideal for the backup quarterback is, hey, man, just don't lose us this game.
Yeah.
Hey, just run the offense, get the ball out, don't turn it over. Maybe this is something that Carson Wentz can learn. Andy Reid's not a bad guy to learn it from, potentially. It is a little funny. Like, Carson Wentz is one of those guys that, like, the first 2 times we said his name, Spencer laughed. Like, that's
I've been there.
Like,
I've had to watch him.
That's the reaction to Carson Wentz now. He went from a guy who probably would have won the MVP if he hadn't gotten hurt in 2017 to being this now as he enters his 30s. Maybe this is a sign that the Chiefs are just going to sign whoever and just have a progressively funnier backup quarterback every year. Like, next year it'll be Mitch Trubisky, and the year after that it'll be like Nathan Peterman, and then it'll be Justin Fields, and they'll just keep taking turns with the funniest backup quarterbacks possible. I'm all for that. That's a funny idea to me. But here's another idea. And this stat I got from Sam McDowell, the Kansas City Star, who did some research on this and noted that before the existence of the tush push, which is really a 2-year phenomenon, right? Since Jalen Hurts has been the starter there in Philadelphia and Nick Sirianni's been coaching. Before that play came into vogue, the best season EPA, or expected points added, on quarterback sneaks for any quarterback in the last decade belonged to Carson Wentz. What if Carson Wentz is sneak man? What if he is the designated 3rd or 4th and less than a yard? We can get the 6 inches we need with a quarterback sneak, but we haven't run one of those with Patrick Mahomes since 2019. Let's bring in Carson.
And my thought on things like that is generally don't do it, because I watched David Beatty use Carter Stanley as the run-only quarterback for an entire season one time, and it was a disaster, because generally, that's what's going to happen. The quarterback is going to keep it. But the thing is, for the Chiefs, everyone knows you're not sneaking it with Patrick Mahomes. Everyone already knows that. If you're in a 4th and 1 and you're lined up in a sneak position, usually Mahomes is going to back out and Travis Kelce or Blake Bell or Noah Gray is going to run up and take the snap, or you're going to run something goofy out of that set instead. You already know he's not going to sneak it. You could live with that. You could do that. Teams have done dumber things. Certainly, I could live with that. He's good. I put a video, a YouTube short up on the YouTube channel today, and about the Carson Wentz signing. And 2 of the 3 clips in the video are of him running the ball on quarterback draw last year in that Week 18 game against San Francisco. You could live with that. It'd be fine. It's useful. You protect Mahomes then. You could live with that.
Question from the YouTube comments, the YouTube live chat from the Jayhawker about Clyde's contract. Is it guaranteed? Can they cut him if he gets beat out by a free agent?
Too early.
Yeah, we don't have full details on that. I don't imagine it's going to be so burdensome that they couldn't move on if some other things were to materialize. Nate Taylor of The
I was just
Athletic
going to bring that up.
has said that the visit with Dobbins today was, quote, productive for both parties, perhaps a partnership that could happen later this offseason, end quote. So that door is still open. The draft is obviously still ahead of the Chiefs. Jet McKinnon remains out there. This is by no means a guarantee that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is on the 53 next year.
Yeah.
But it is nice at this stage of the offseason when you only have one running back with two running backs under contract to maybe get a third under contract.
My guess, and this is truly, purely guess on my part, is that this deal is something like the veteran minimum is guaranteed with a decent number of incentives. That would be my guess. Like one year, 1.5 million, it can be worth as much as 2.5 or something like that. Because here's the other thing when you're talking about guys like running back 3 or even quarterback 3 for certain teams, there probably wasn't a big market out there for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and his value to the Chiefs, knowing the offense, knowing the expectations, knowing his role, etc., is more valuable to Kansas City than A, replacement player of a similar caliber, and B, his value to another team where he would be learning a new offense, learning new teammates, learning a new coaching staff. So if you're not going to pay him all that much, and to the point you just made too, J.K. Dobbins gets a clean bill of health, or you end up and one of the best running backs in the draft falls to you in the 3rd round, and you say, well, he's just the best player available, we take him. You can move off this contract. That's not something the Chiefs need to worry about. Plus, you've got all the new cap space with L'Jarius Sneed getting traded. So that's wide open as well. We'll talk some more Chiefs coming up a little bit later on this hour when Jesse Newell joins us, Chiefs beat writer for the Kansas City Star. But before we get there and before we get to Random Question Tuesday, it's time we take a trip to the D. Pasquale Moore Injury Attorneys ticket window. We've got a family 4-pack of tickets to Royals White Sox on Friday. Okay, this is a family 4-pack of tickets for Friday, 6:40 first pitch at the K. What caller do we want, Dan?
Let's go with caller number, we did 2 yesterday, so let's go caller number 3 today.
Caller number 3 to 785-272-9429. We'll get your information. Caller number 3, you will win a family 4-pack of tickets to Royals White Sox coming up on Friday. We've got Random Question Tuesday coming up right after this break here on 580 Sports Talk. Random question Tuesday time here on 580 Sports Talk. My random question for you guys today, growing up, what was the go-to place for pickup games? Whose house, what park? What was the go-to place for pickup games?
Honestly, when I was really little, it was our backyard. We lived in the house I lived in from when I was about 4 years old until about 8th grade. We lived in a cul-de-sac, and we had the biggest backyard on the block.
Yep.
So the neighborhood kids wanted to come and play in our backyard, and my mom and dad were cool with that as long as they included me, which I was like 4 or 5, and these are like middle school, high school age kids. God bless them. They did include me. And so we did. We'd play, football. We'd play wiffle ball. We'd play, anything in the backyard. So it was our backyard. That was the place to go play like wiffle ball.
Nice.
Or something like that.
So in my neighborhood, it was like when they built it, they had like the gas lines running through in a certain area, which so it was just a big open field.
Okay.
It was behind one of my buddies' houses that I grew up with. And we would go there for football and stuff like that. But when it was baseball, we'd played baseball there. When we got a little bit older, one of our other friends, his yard, again, cul-de-sac, but top of a cul-de-sac, his backyard was like shaped in such a way that it was like perfect for like a baseball field. And it had like the ballpark feel, like the way that the plants were and the trees were. It was like the feel. And like, it was just that was the spot like when we got into like middle school and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was like you were aware of like aesthetics, I guess.
Yeah, I get that.
Of like a ballpark feel. So like we moved it there, but like playing football on the gas line area was the best because it was just this wide open field.
For us, it was my house for football. We would just play touch football on the street, but I lived on the quietest street. There's much more traffic on all the streets where my buddies live. So we played at my house for football. And then my friend Matt's house for basketball I don't know why we picked his. I think he had the biggest driveway with the biggest court for basketball. So yeah, I lived just 3 blocks from my junior high, my middle school. And it was just the school on the entire block. And it was part school, part just big open field. So that's where we played baseball because it was gigantic. And the one house that was off to the left had a fence. So if you hit the ball far enough, it actually did feel like hitting a real home run. Yeah. So that's why we played baseball there.
When we moved in 8th grade, when I was in 8th grade, we moved and we lived walking distance from both a high school and an elementary school. The elementary school had blacktop with hoops.
Oh, yeah.
And the baseball field was like right there when you could walk to it. You had the baseball field, which usually, they had, padlocked the batting cage and whatever. But the open softball field was off to the side. You could use that.
That's nice.
You hit or whatever.
I grew up just across a dead end from the Catholic high school in the area. And when I was a kid, I've shared stories about this school before. Their football team sucked. They were awful, and they played in the Chicago Catholic League, and they would they'd be scheduled to host teams that had like Mount Carmel, which is where Donovan McNabb and Simeon Rice played. Like all the big recruiting inner city schools would come out to the suburbs and play and would just kill them. They'd win 80-0 every game. And they didn't take care of their field. And the fence around the field was like a 3-foot tall chain link fence. So my buddies and I could just climb over it and just play on the field all the time.
Yep.
Then one year they decided to get good and they put in field turf and a 6-foot fence. And they've since won, I think, 5 state titles in the last 15 years. They decided, hey, what if we actually tried to have football? So we no longer got to play on the field at Nazareth Academy.
That'll do it. All right, my question today, it was one of those engagement bait tweets going around on Twitter, gentlemen saying every sports fan got that one loss that made them suicidal. And that's a little extreme, and we're not going to go that far, but it's true. Every sports fan has that one loss that has stuck with them and bothers them more than any other. So what's yours?
You know my answer. Why are you baiting me into this? Why are you bullying me on a Tuesday afternoon?
I'm not bullying you. I'm going to have to tap it into a vein myself.
2014 NFC Championship game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have a different angle on that one.
I'm sure you do.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's the one. That one.
More so than, again, I'm not trying to rip open any old wounds that you've done a better job of stitching up, but I'm surprised it's that one more so than it's like the one from 2-3 years ago.
2020.
Yeah.
2020 for the Packers when we lost to the 49ers in the NFC Championship
the one where they
game.
kicked the field goal instead of going for it on fourth down and never got the ball back.
Yeah, even with that decision, and Rodgers wasn't great, but he was fine enough. That game felt less like we just gave it away. But plus, David Bakhtiari got hurt during practice that week. So not having our star left tackle. Now, that one, knowing what the Chiefs had to run out there at offensive line for the Super Bowl, in retrospect, may have had a better chance of beating that team than the 2014 Patriots in a Super Bowl. However, the NFC Championship game of 2014, the Packers were the better team for 50 minutes, 52 minutes. Like, Russell Wilson did not know where he was, probably for 2 weeks.
Yeah, he was in hell. He threw 5 picks.
He was awful. He was mega concussed. The Packers did everything possible when all they had to do was run C- offense and just gave the game away. Just completely piddled down their leg and botched a 2-point conversion defense.
Failed to recover an onside kick.
The onside kick disaster with Brandon Bostic jumping in front of Jordy Nelson.
And then the loose coin flip. No, get the ball in overtime.
Lose the coin flip, the fake field goal for a touchdown.
Also kicked 2 field goals at the 1-yard line. Kicked 2 20-yard field goals.
There's Mike McCarthy for you. Yeah, so that one will always be the most painful.
Okay. Spencer?
I have 2.
Okay.
Because they're in back-to-back years to the same team in the playoffs. That'd be the Capitals losing to the Penguins. 2016 in the playoffs. It was game 6, overtime, winner to the Eastern Conference final. Lost in overtime. Then the next year, 2017, they played each other again, and the Caps lost again. And that was my breaking point of it's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It is never going to happen.
And then
2018, the demons were exercised, as John Walton put it on the radio call from Evgeny Kuznetsov's goal. But those lived with me for those 2 years.
It's Super Bowl 49 for me. I still physically cannot watch Malcolm Butler intercept that pass. To this day, I leave the room if they show the replay or I change the channel. I can't watch it.
I get that. I understand that. We do have to get to a quick commercial break. Jesse Newell will join us after that to talk all things Chiefs here on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk is our good friend Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star. Jesse covers the Kansas City Chiefs for the Star. You can find him on Twitter at Jesse Newell. And, of course, go check out kansascity.com to find his great work covering the KC Chiefs. What's going on, Jesse? How you been?
Doing all right, guys. Yeah, it's been busy, even though it doesn't seem like it's super busy this time of year, about draft season. But yeah, it seems like the NFL steals all the headlines.
Well, let's just dive right on in, Jesse, because we've had a bunch of one-year signings for the Chiefs over the last 18 hours or so. Let's start with the news that broke just a little bit ago, and I haven't seen if you have gotten your sources to confirm this yet, but sounds like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is coming back for Kansas City as a backup to Isaiah Pacheco. I was very surprised by this. Not anything personal. I just thought that relationship had run its course. Are you surprised to hear that out there that the Chiefs are looking to bring him back?
Well, we can confirm with the Star, so
okay.
You can put that. We can put that one down in Sharpie. Sort of, it's interesting for what they need from that position. I think it's probably okay. We know what Clyde does. He had some productive moments for the Chiefs last year. Remember the Patriots game in particular, where he had that jump ball touchdown catch from Patrick Mahomes. Also had a long reception in that particular game. And by now, I think the Chiefs going back and relying on some security. You can see this in some other signings that they've had this offseason as well. Like they're bringing back almost their entire defensive line. The Derek Notties of the world. They're to Sean Morton. And maybe this is sort of what you do if you're the Chiefs, because if you have the big salary for Patrick Mahomes, you have the big salary for Chris Jones, and you have to fill in these other spots with a relatively if you have guys that know your system and know your play calls and know exactly what you like, then maybe you bring those guys back and they're happy to come back and try to go for a three-peat, and it's sort of a mutually beneficial thing both ways. So I think we know what he is at this point. Edwards-Helaire, whether it's injuries or whatever has gone on, he doesn't have the explosiveness he once had or that he was supposed to have coming out of college as a first-round pick with the Chiefs. But as a backup, as a guy who knows the offense, as a guy who's available to be a pass catcher, I think it's fine. I think it's fine for the Chiefs. And, I'd anticipate this to be right about the veteran minimum. And so if Clyde wants to come back and do that and be around for the Chiefs, then I think this is something that's for the Chiefs. If this is your 45th, 46th, 47th roster spot, then you could probably do a lot worse than a guy that you know what you're going to get from him and the kind of production he can give and the kind of teammate he's going to be. I can tell you that as well, Brendan, that he is universally loved in that Chiefs locker room.
Obviously, that is incredibly important, too. And we were discussing that because I know Mahomes has spoken highly of him and the other guys have spoken highly of him. So that certainly makes sense, which is an interesting juxtaposition, I think, Jesse, with the new backup quarterback for the Chiefs, reportedly. That is Carson Wentz, who's been a starter for most of his career. There have been a lot of stories and rumors about him over time, some that he has been a great teammate, some that he has been on the move a whole lot because he's maybe not so much of a great teammate, but he's also struggled on the field in recent years. What do you think of Carson Wentz, the player, as the backup option for Patrick Mahomes this year?
So I will say one thing. We went to the Combine to talk to Brett Beach and Andy Reid in Indianapolis. And, this backup quarterback spot was brought up. And, Brett Beach was talking and said maybe they'll draft somebody, maybe they'll look at this. But unprompted, he started talking about the quarterback sneak and how the Chiefs can't run it with Patrick Mahomes, or at least they don't allow themselves to run it because of Andy Reid and the fear that, Patrick Mahomes' kneecap is going to go to the side of his knee again. And you can understand those fears, but Brett Beach unprompted sort of went on to a little bit of a speech about how they would love to have a guy who could run a quarterback sneak. They would love a backup quarterback who could go in there and get that tough yard when they need it and still have an option to pass the ball if defenses are just going to sell out on that particular play, like we've seen sometimes with the Philadelphia Eagles. So Dan McDowell, our columnist, wrote about that this morning, that it's very interesting signing because behind Jalen Hurts, the numbers he found, basically the second best quarterback sneak quarterback in football over the past 10 years or so has been Carson Wentz. So for the Chiefs, this is sort of mixing very interesting, a guy that, obviously they love their high pedigree guys, the guys that were former first-round picks. Carson Wentz fits that bill, but he sort of fits a very particular skill set for the Chiefs that they might need in their backup quarterback that other teams probably wouldn't even look to, which is if they get to third and half a yard, you can put him on the field and credibly represent not only a quarterback sneak, but also a pass as well. So I know that the Chiefs do like challenging Patrick Mahomes in the quarterback room and having him have some guys smart so that they can challenge
Chiefs beat writer for the Kansas City Star. You can go find his great work in the Star and make sure you follow him as well on Twitter at Jesse Newell. He joins us here on 580 Sports Talk today via the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Wanted Jesse to talk to you about your mock draft that was published yesterday. First, before we get to any of the players, any of the picks, Jesse, a 7-round mock draft. I know we talked to you about this last year as well. It is the work of sickos, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. But to be able to do 7 full rounds of mock draft, how long did it take you to put this together?
Hours, unfortunately. And you're right, it's work of sickos, but also it's like I got none right last year. So 7 rounds gives you more chances to actually fall into one. And my former colleague, Kirby Tiopi, I mean, he was great last year. He's done this in the past. He seems to nail 1 or 2 picks every single year. And he
Having a minor phone issue here with Jesse. We will try to get him back on the horn here in just a moment. Talking to Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star. We talk all things Chiefs. You were spot on. I mean, you had the stat from Sam McDowell earlier about quarterback sneaking. It's different. Not a lot of that's more of a college football or Canadian football kind of thing. But if it works, it works.
The designated sneaker. He's the sneak man.
Take that. You can live with that kind of thing. I wouldn't complain about it. If it's going to make the Chiefs actually better at getting 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, I'm all for it. 100% for it. We are currently dealing with some sort of phone issue here. We'll try to get Jesse back on in just a moment, as we are going to try to get some extra help in here. Again, Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star joining us today.
Jesse's got so much good stuff. Like, we're calling in all the stops here. We're trying to.
Yeah, we'll get Jesse back on.
Yeah, and we'll get it all figured out.
So we will get. Let's take a quick commercial break. Then we're having some issues. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll go about 2 minutes right here. We'll come on back. We'll try to get Jesse back on the phone. This is 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk continuing. It is the joys of dealing with modern technology. Sometimes the phones work, sometimes they don't work. Trying to get Jesse Newell back on.
Right now
Brendan,
they don't
Dan, and
work.
Spencer here with you. Trying to figure out if we can get Jesse back on the horn. I don't think we are going to be able to, unfortunately. So it is what it is sometimes. Sometimes your technology craps out on you in the middle of an interview with, and are we maybe able to go? We're hearing some phone lines here. You guys are getting to experience exactly what dealing with technology is like. Jesse Newell, can you hear us?
I'm back.
Wow, that was way more stressful than it needed to be. I had a whole paragraph typed out to you in a text, but glad I don't have to send it. All right, let's just dive right in because now we're a little bit short on time here. Your first pick, Kingsley Suamataia from BYU. Why would he fit with the Chiefs?
Yeah, they need a left tackle. Last year they kind of had the same situation, ended up signing Donovan Smith as a free agent afterwards. That option is still available to the Chiefs, but at some point you'd like to have a long-term solution for Patrick Mahomes, and we know Brett Veach loves to commit to those positions on the offensive line to not have a repeat of the Bucs Chiefs Super Bowl from a few years ago. So a really deep class in offensive tackles, and I think Kingsley would make a lot of sense. Not to mention him going to BYU where Andy Reid went might not hurt his chances either.
Our guest again is Jesse Newell from the Kansas City Star, joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline on 580 Sports Talk. Jesse, lots of mocks have the Chiefs taking a wide receiver with that number 32 pick. Your mock has the Chiefs going in that direction with their second round selection, Tez Walker out of North Carolina. What is your thought on that second round or second day tier of wide receivers? Can the Chiefs get a day one contributor if indeed they wait until day two to find a wide receiver in the draft?
Yeah, I think we've learned this about the Chiefs. They trust their scouts and they trust their evaluations of guys. And we saw that last year when they traded up for Rashee Rice. A lot of people mock draft did not have him going that high. The Chiefs took him. Rashee Rice was coming off a foot injury. And as we know, he was really productive last season. Now, I know the off the field stuff is going on right now, and we'll see how that impacts him potentially moving forward. But that is an example of the Chiefs sort of sticking to their guns and being able to take somebody a little bit later and get just as much production as they might have from a guy taken earlier. So, as you mentioned, that's a potential option for the Chiefs there. The really good thing that they have going this draft is it seems like it's really deep in offensive tackle and really deep in wide receiver. So maybe some guys that would be first-round talents other years will slip to the second round. And so for the Chiefs, I see them going offensive tackle and wide receiver. Again, if I'm trying to predict the future, I don't know if they're going to go wide receiver or tackle first, but if they go tackle first, I think they come back with receiver, and that's definitely a potential option for them in the second round.
What do you like about Tez Walker's fit with the Chiefs in particular?
Well, I mean, it's a downfield threat, and for the Chiefs, they sort of have a one-year stopgap right now with Hollywood Brown. And if you're looking long-term, not only do they have to replace production, we know Travis Kelce is going to start to tail off on production when it comes to, the later years of the 30s of his life. But that's why the Chiefs need to take a receiver, is because right now they sort of have short-term solutions to potential long-term problems. And so a guy who can extend the field, get down the field, and so much what the Chiefs do, it's sort of like that guy that they have, like Marquez Valdes-Scantling was. It's almost like having a corner, a guy standing in the corner in the NBA. To space the defense. They love that guy just taking off down the field, sprinting down there, moving the defense. So a lot of those intermediate routes are open for guys like Travis Kelce and other guys underneath. So even if some of the downfield threats aren't always super duper productive, they use that guy in the offense. And if they could get a ball tracker and a better ball catcher than they had with MVS here in previous years, then having a guy like that on a rookie contract could really help them. So that's where a guy like that could really fit the Chiefs, and potentially down the line could turn into a starter, and one who would be a lot cheaper than what the Chiefs have previously gotten on the free agent market.
One position whose omission from your mock draft stood out to me was defensive back. In your picks for the Chiefs, you do not have them selecting a defensive back. That's a position that the Chiefs have traditionally liked to select on the third day of the draft. Is this a reflection to you of a belief that the Chiefs really like the talent that they have in the room already at defensive back?
Yeah, and I actually was talking. I was talking with guys at the Super Bowl about their 2022 draft. You know what I mean? And the Chiefs taking 5 secondary players, which none of us would have predicted before that particular draft, that they would take 5 secondary guys. But look how that went for them. All of those guys contributing, all of those guys playing a role on the particular team, for the Chiefs. And so, yeah, Dave Merritt, the secondary coach for the Chiefs, was kind of laughing with me in Vegas at the Super Bowl, he said, people thought I had pictures of Brett Veach or thought I was crazy to be able to get him to take 5 of those picks, but look what they turned into. And if you look for the Chiefs behind what they have with L'Jarius Sneed, okay, we know Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams, we think are both ready to step into bigger roles. And oh, by the way, Najee Johnson was set to be above both of those guys in training camp last year before he tore out his knee and had season-ending surgery. So you add all those guys, plus Nick Jones, another 7th-round pick they had a year ago, and it's just a sort of a matter of like, how many picks does Dave Merritt get to take for the Chiefs and get into Brett Veach's ear and be able to continue to get those guys out there? Not to mention a guy like Echo Boydo. I mean, could add some muscle, could add some weight, but he's a guy that Stags has loved from day one. I just think they like sort of the factory and the guys that they have there, and they surely have a lot of young guys to pick from. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take one, but right now I think their depth is pretty good there, and they certainly seem to be able to turn guys into productive players after year 2 or year 3. They have a lot of potential bodies that can do that this particular season.
We're joined by Jesse Newell, Chiefs beat writer for the Kansas City Star on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Jesse, you have the Chiefs picking a running back for the final round. Obviously, today might change how your mock draft would go, but Rasheen Ali's a guy that they are bringing in or have brought in for a top 30 visit. Do you potentially maybe see him as a guy they bring on undrafted if they want to go with a different position there? I'm
sorry, who'd you say it was?
Rasheen Ali.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you look at these top 30 visits. That's sometimes an indicator. You know what I mean? That's sometimes a guy that you're looking at and you're going, okay. Chiefs obviously have interest in this particular guy, and they're able to go in there and visit them and like them. And if you go back in previous drafts, a lot of those 6th, 7th round picks, it's like, oh, I went back in time. I went back and looked at the Twitter, and these guys came in for visits, and the Chiefs ended up going that. But yeah, I mean, you said the news of the day. Clyde Edwards-Helaire signed with the Chiefs. They had, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, they had J.K. Dobbins on for a visit today. We'll see where he particularly signs. So maybe the running back position locks itself up here in due time. But the Chiefs have had some success with this 7th round running back thing. Isaiah Pacheco has been way more than his draft position. And so if you're looking at a guy like Rasheen Ali from Marshall who comes in, I know a lot of scouts like him, like his skill set. This doesn't seem to be a super deep running back class for the NFL. But if you're taking a stab on a 7th round pick, and if he works out, it's great. If he doesn't, then you're not really losing that much. That potentially could be the sort of area you would see a guy like that take sort of a dart throw for the Chiefs. So we'll see if that turns out for the Chiefs. But again, at this point, we're sort of picking at straws and trying to figure out exactly what the Chiefs might do with some definitely dart throws at the end. And that could be one. But like I said, if the Chiefs solidify their running back spot, which it seems like they might be doing this week, then maybe that sort of draft pick change.
Jesse Newell covers the Kansas City Chiefs for the Kansas City Star. Go find him on Twitter at Jesse Newell. And, of course, go check out all of his great work covering the Super Bowl champs in the Kansas City Star. Jesse, thank you so much for bearing through some major technical issues with us. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
That's Jesse Newell, our good pal from the Kansas City Star. Really appreciate Jesse hanging out with us today. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, we'll lead things off with our headlines here on 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucera, Spencer Dupuis joining you today. We're off early for Royals baseball. The Y'alls in action out in the mid-Atlantic.
The Royals.
Rawls. How would you spell that? Royals in West Virginian English.
ROLLS, like a dinner roll.
Royals. Royal. I don't know. Rolls.
ROOYLLS.
Yeah, that'd probably be
Royals.
about right.
That might be it. Well, so we're here with you until 5 o'clock. Then we'll send you to the Royals Radio Network here on 580 WIBW. Busy final hour of the show today. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in just a few moments. We'll also get to today is what is wrong with you. See if anyone can take down the wholesaler hitman. And we've got Jayhawk Weekly with Michael Swain coming up at the bottom of the hour. You can join us as well on the YouTube stream. Head to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. Subscribe to the channel while you are there. We would appreciate it a great deal. And then you can leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about on the show today. You can also go back and check out anything you missed from the show today. You can also drop us a line on the Top City Metal Supply text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. No more wasting money on metal pieces that leave you with unnecessary leftovers. Top City Metal Supply will cut the exact lengths of aluminum, steel, and stainless steel you need tailored to your project's specifications. So start optimizing your budget with Top City Metal Supply, located on South Topeka Boulevard, just north of Forbes Field. Let's dive right into it, guys, with our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. First one for me. Big 12 Mexico is being postponed. This was announced by the Big 12 earlier today. Now, in case you had forgotten, this coming December, KU and Houston were going to play each other in a non-conference game in Mexico. That's part of the Big 12's attempt to branch out and to expand the conference's reach and all of that. But this was released at 9 a.m. this morning by the conference. Quote, today the Big 12 announced it will delay the launch of Big 12 Mexico with a new target date of 2025. Since Big 12 Mexico was announced, a variety of major initiatives have been added to the conference's agenda, headlined by the onboarding of 4 new member institutions. The Big 12 will continue to build its brand in Mexico through its broadcast partners and remains enthusiastic about bringing the Big 12 to Mexico. I don't really care long-term. In fact, you know the thing I care about the most with this is that this is going to be the best and easiest opportunity to get Johnny Furphy NIL money, was to be playing a game across the border. That was going to make it easier in case Johnny Furphy does come back to KU. But grand scheme of things, I don't really care about this.
The big negative here is that now they have a hole to fill in their schedule.
Yeah, you got to
both teams, because men and women were down there.
Yeah, so you got to figure something out in that regard. This is also from Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle, who is the Houston Cougars beat writer down there. With the postponement of Big 12 Mexico this year, the participating teams reset, and there is no guarantee those will be the teams that play against each other in 2025, which, again, doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Theoretically, like, maybe it makes more sense to have Houston play Arizona. I don't know. Maybe it, impacts the Mexican populations of these schools. I don't know. I don't know exactly how this is going to work out.
Tucson, a little bit closer to Mexico City than is Lawrence.
Yes, which is fair enough to say. The one thing that doesn't quite mesh with me, though, a variety of major initiatives have been added, headlined by the onboarding of 4 new member institutions. You mean the same thing that happened this year when it was announced? Because you also onboarded 4 new institutions this year. Did we forget that BYU, Houston, UCF, and Cincinnati were all new members this year? Did we just sort of forget about that? So I don't know, man. I don't really. It is what it is. It's whatever. But that argument doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. That seems kind of flimsy.
I think that they canceled it to give PL more time to write the Big 12 anthem in Spanish.
We don't take a Saturday off.
Bienvenidos a el 12 Grande.
Is that?
Cada noche es una batalla until the end. Hasta el final. La energía en la... Where were they playing this game?
Mexico City?
Was it Mexico City?
I believe so.
What arena?
Some weird name.
Yeah, I do not know.
La energía en la arena CDMX will average.
There you go.
Como 10.
Well done. I'm going to assume that's a perfect translation.
Well, not perfect. I don't know how to say average. That one has apparently eluded me, but 8 years of Spanish class served me decently well there.
There you go.
PL, hit my line.
I took French in school. So
I took Latin.
you were a Latin kid?
Yeah.
Wow. One of my
Mostly-
best friends was a Latin kid.
Mostly because the teacher was like the best teacher ever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Shout out
took
to
French.
Mr. Driscoll.
I don't know much Spanish at all.
Yeah.
Is gordita real Spanish?
Yeah.
Okay. Chalupa. That's about as far as I'm not even trying to be insensitive here. I really do not know any Spanish whatsoever. So yeah, Big 12 Mexico, KU versus Houston
Is
will
that-
not be happening this year.
El Doce Grande is actually a dope translation of the Big 12.
Is that how you say 12? Doce?
Uno, dos, tres,
El
cuatro,
doce-
cinco,
el
seis, siete,
doce-
ocho, nueve, diez,
11, 12, 13, 14,
15.
15.
Yeah, that's
I barely passed.
It's all Greek
Spanish
to me.
I took Spanish in college
Mhm.
for two Spanishes,
Mm-hmm.
Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and Spanish 1. I had an F, but the professor said you don't need the class, so I'm going to give you a C. And then I took the other one online through a community college. Thought that it was going to be easy. No, you had to go there to take your tests in a testing
Ugh.
center. So I failed. I failed it, but I got a D in the class, and it transferred back to Marshall
as a D.
as a D. But a D is passing in your non-major courses.
D's get degrees.
Hey.
So I indeed passed the class and never thought about Spanish ever again.
See, I took so much Spanish in middle school and high school that I did not have to take a foreign language in college. I tested out, took the AP tests and everything.
I did not take the AP test for French. I do remember taking the language placement online test at KU, getting about 3 questions in and just saying, I'm resigned to French 1. It's fine. I'll start all over at French 101. It's fine.
Regrettably, despite what I consider to be a fairly decent showing here in this segment, I have not retained much of my Spanish, but it was good enough when I went to Puerto Vallarta on my honeymoon. I could get by a little bit.
That's what counts.
I can read it pretty good still, contextually.
Yeah.
But if we flipped formats tomorrow and we were ASAPNA Deportes 580, I would be hard pressed to keep my job.
That's fair. I remember I've shared this story on the air before, but I remember when I was in France in 15, and I was at a McDonald's. I was walking all day, and I was just so thirsty, so I just went into a McDo to get a drink. And I thought I did a great job ordering in French. I got all the pronunciation right. I got all the vocab right. I was so proud of myself. And the woman behind the counter goes, okay, you want anything else with that? And I thought, oh, come on. At least respond in French the first time.
That's funny.
Come on. I was so embarrassed.
I know how to order at a French McDonald's. A Royale with cheese.
I've shared this too. I've eaten at a McDonald's in every country I've been to. French McDonald's pretty good. They've got France and Italy have real standards for the food. So, like, if you're going to open in our countries, you're going to have quality
I have
meat.
seen that. You see that a lot more these days with food influencers where they'll go to other countries and sample them, like McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, whatever, or insert restaurant, fast food restaurant there.
Very much an ugly American thing of me to do, but it also tasted really good. So whatever.
Yeah. Maybe if they had higher standards, that Italian Domino's we riffed about might have been actually good.
Italian Domino's.
I like how we've really steered off the course in this segment.
Yeah. Yes. The headline is
You've
that
been
one.
around long enough, Spencer. You should know what time it is. This ain't your first day.
I know, but this is going to be a tight hour.
The big headline is that one time we had Italian Domino's on What Is Wrong With You.
It wasn't even What Is Wrong With You. We heard it on the news.
Oh, that's right. It wasn't a What Is Wrong With You.
We heard it on the news and we couldn't stop thinking about it.
I had to Google it.
Italy,
whole thing.
Italy is closing all of its Domino's. Like,
Why did they have them in the first place? Oh my God. All right, Dan, what's your first headline?
well, we'll follow up on a headline from yesterday. Kansas rules JUCO basketball.
That's right.
Just 2 days after Barton Community College cinched the national championship in men's junior college basketball, The Hutch women took home the Natty in Casper, Wyoming yesterday. Needed overtime to do it and needed something like a miracle in the final seconds. They were down by 3. A foul was committed by Northwest Florida State. Hutch made all of their free throws to tie the game, send it to overtime, and win to complete a perfect season, 37-0. And once again, it was Topeka High Trojan alum Kiki Smith at the center of it all for the Blue Dragons. She had 23 points in the winning effort. So the first ever national championship for Hutch women's basketball clinched last night in Casper. So congratulations to them. Congratulations to the former Trojan, Kiki Smith. And tremendous achievement for the Jayhawk Conference this year to claim both men's and women's junior college natties.
That's awesome. Kiki Smith rules. Can we get her a high major scholarship offer here, folks?
She's going to make some program really, really happy, whether it's after this year or after next. Somebody's going to get a hell of a player.
Yeah, she's a stud. She always has been. We knew from the first time we saw her play at Topeka High, she was going to be something special. So that's awesome for her. Awesome for Hutch. Really, really cool. Jayhawk Conference wins both the men's and women's JUCO national titles. How about that?
Yeah.
There you go.
The other day, who was it? It was some player in the NCAA tournament had started. Oh, it was Justin Harmon for Illinois. He was shooting free throws at the end of that debacle in the Elite Eight the other day. And Kevin Harlan mentioned that he started his career at a junior college in Kansas. And my wife turns to me and says, "Oh, where did he play?" And I said, "Everyone went to JUCO in Kansas. That's the only place anyone ever goes to JUCO." She's like, "Okay, well, I wanted a real answer." So, okay, sorry. But it's true.
3 other Kansas girls on that roster, by the way. Maddie Dennison from Mineola, Bree Harina from Liberal, and Bryn McCormick from Cheney also on that team. So
good old Cheney. I know how to say that now.
No.
Hey, yeah, you got it down. First try.
Oh, my gosh. No, that's awesome, though. Good for Kiki Smith and good for the Hutch girls. Hutch women, excuse me. What's your first headline today?
It's kind of a follow-up, but not necessarily a headline. So we talked earlier. Dan brought up the tweet from Chiefs athletic beat reporter Nate Taylor about what J.K. Dobbins, that it was a productive visit and that a partnership could perhaps happen later this offseason. Former Chiefs backup quarterback and renowned backup quarterback in the NFL, Chase Daniel, quoted that tweet and said, AKA, let's bring J.K. Dobbins in as leverage to make Clyde Edwards-Helaire sign. I was that leverage in March of 2017 after I got cut by Philly. I was in Dallas, and Jets flew me up first class to meet up with them. As soon as I got off the plane, my agent called and said they signed Josh McCown to a $6 million deal. Had the driver take us to Philly so I could move out of our house instead. That's life in the NFL.
Yeah, if you missed the news earlier, the Chiefs are bringing Clyde Edwards-Helaire back on a 1-year deal that has been reported by every outlet at this point. I understand what he is saying here. I do. But what sort of leverage do you need for Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Like, I don't think, like I said earlier, I think his value to the Chiefs is more value than he would provide to another team or that a replacement would provide to Kansas City.
My only thought is they offered him a deal and he initially didn't want to take it. So then they're trying to bring somebody else in and nobody else is, he's still a free agent here. What are we, nearly a month into free agency?
Yeah,
3 weeks?
close to it. Yeah, 3 weeks.
So he didn't really have any other offers to go anywhere else.
Huh.
I don't know. That's my take.
Yeah, that's interesting take there from Chase Daniel. Let's move on with our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. Do you remember Travis Kelce's music festival this past year?
I do, vaguely.
Kelsey Jam?
I do remember Kelsey Jam.
You didn't make the trip out to Bonner Springs?
I did not. I don't remember who was there.
Tech 9 was there.
Of course he was. Yeah, remember? Because it was like special guest Tech 9. He opened the thing.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Yeah. So Travis Kelce is bringing back Kelsey Jam for a second year. I need to go back and find who last year's performers were. It is a very high-profile list of performers this year. That includes Lil Wayne, 2 Chainz, and Diplo, for all you electronic music fans out there. Travis Kelce said, quote, "I like to keep it fresh, new, and keep people coming back for more." Last year, reportedly 20,000 people went out to Kelsey Jam.
To see Machine Gun Kelly, Loud Luxury, and Rick Ross along with Tech 9.
That's right.
It was Rick Ross.
Bouse. love Rick
I'll
Ross.
tell you what, these are great, like, graphics or posters.
Yeah.
Like, those are great posters that he makes, or he has made for them.
Fun fact, did you know that Rick Ross once performed at the KU football spring game?
Did not know that.
When Les Miles was the coach? Yeah, man. You missed out on a golden era of really dumb stuff that came from my alma mater's football program.
The Les Miles era will never be forgotten.
No, well, by him it will be. Yeah, Taylor Swift, that was not very nice. Taylor Swift is going to be in Stockholm during this year's Kelsey Jam.
So
she will not
anyone
be
holding out
performing.
hope that she'll show up, I'm sorry.
I'd rather see 2 Chainz.
I've seen 2 Chainz. It was not a good show. It was at a festival, and he just spent the whole time like telling people to stop being rowdy. I thought, dude, you're playing at 6 in the early evening at a music festival in Chicago in the summertime. What do you think people are going to do? And then spent half of the act just playing music from his computer and saying, this is my favorite hit of the summer, and then just dancing to it.
That's awesome.
Like, it would have been fun, but it was, I'm here to see 2 Chainz.
Yeah.
He is a large man, by the way.
I want to hear him rap and rhyme the word appetizer with lappetizer, which is a word he invented to describe a lap dance so that he could rhyme it with the word appetizer. Genius is what that is. Pure genius. Also, she got a big booty, so I call her Big Booty.
Well, that's an all-time line.
Yeah. I don't know why we haven't given him the Nobel Prize for literature yet.
The second annual Kelsey Jam Music Festival will be held at the Azura Amphitheater in Bonner Springs on May 18th, which is a Saturday in just over a month's time. So get your tickets now. I actually don't know if they are selling tickets quite yet.
I would assume with the announcement they're about to or have started selling.
Yeah, I figure that'll probably be here in the near future. Yeah, Kelsey Jam. Tickets are not pre-sale is on Friday. There you go. Pre-sale tickets on Friday for Kelsey Jam.
Next headline for me, one more college basketball game for Tyler Perry of Kansas State. He's been selected to play in the Reese's College All-Star Game in Phoenix on Friday. He will be one of 21 players who will participate. He'll play for the West team, which will be coached by Steve Lavin, by the way.
Hey!
Perry's the first Wildcat to play in this particular All-Star game since Mark Smith suited up in 2022. Perry will be joined on the West team by some familiar names: Casey Tominaga from Nebraska, Jesse Edwards from West Virginia, Missouri's Sean East II, to name a few. The East team will feature, among others, Jack Golke.
Yeah!
And will be coached by Golke's college coach, Oakland head coach Greg Camp. A 5:30 p.m. Central Time tip-off for that game on Friday. It will be telecast on the CBS Sports Network if you would like to watch.
I am less concerned about who is playing in this game, and I am more concerned about the return of our good personal friend, Cuppy.
Yes, will Cuppy be there is the big question.
I figure so.
I would imagine. Like, this is a big day on Cuppy's calendar.
When we covered KU in the Final Four in 2018, we did the show live from the Alamo Dome. We sat in behind the ends. I mean, they had basketball courts set up, but what would have been the end zone, Dan, myself, and Jake Laban, we sat just 3 across with our equipment just sitting on the back of a chair doing the show. And Dan and I, during a commercial break, got up from our seats and went and took pictures with the anthropomorphic Reese's Cup Cuppy.
The Cup Man, as he's familiarly known.
Which I believe is still your avatar for your email address, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, my personal email address. If you have that and you communicate with my personal email address, the avatar is still me posing with the Cupster.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Like, the best part was we were sitting there and joking about it. Like, I wonder what his name is. I wonder if what do they call him? Cuppy? And then to find out, no, actually,
yes,
they do.
His name is indeed Cuppy. That was my Twitter picture for 3 years until I got engaged. And then I thought, okay, maybe I should change my picture at this point. That'll do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. What is wrong with you's next? Then we'll talk to Michael Swain here on 580 Sports Talk. Strong with you time on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan, Dan, and Spencer. Our current winner for the week from yesterday, it is the wholesaler hitman, the produce wholesaler in Florida who wanted to take out his business rival. And I mean literally take him out, like with a hitman, to kill him.
He hired one for $5,000.
That didn't work out for him.
Yes, because it was not really a hitman. It was the feds, which is, again, always the case if you are looking for a hitman. It is never really a hitman.
It is the feds.
John Wick is not real. It's the feds.
If you need, there are hitmen out there, sure. You don't find them on the internet.
You can't get one.
No.
You, king of wholesale produce in South Florida,
cannot get access to that guy.
Whose throne has been threatened. You can't get to them. No.
My first story for today is going to take us to Vero Beach, Florida, where it was a typical Saturday afternoon this weekend, except for a male and a female who appear to be having sexual intercourse on the east side of U.S. Highway 1 in front of a Popeyes.
What?
Man, they really love that chicken.
That is according to an arrest report. One man driving told deputies he noticed the man on top of the female and said he did a double take because he couldn't believe what he was seeing. But the Indian River County deputy wrote, quote, "As I looked over into the bushes on the sidewalk, I observed a man on top of a woman kissing. The male had his pants down and was seen making a thrusting motion while on top of the female. As I identified myself as the sheriff's office, the male was instructed to stand, at which point the male and female were observed adjusting their shorts. The male appeared flustered and was unable to fully pull his shorts up, leaving his body part fully exposed to oncoming traffic. The deputy handcuffed Arnold O'Neill Mackey and seated him on the ground. Later, Mackey advised it was not his intention to expose himself and, referring to his alleged partner, had asked April to leave from the side of the road, but she refused. Mackey further stated he understood he was in plain view of passing motorists, but stated he would, quote, apologize to the judge. Mackey remained cooperative throughout the remainder of the transport to the county jail, but the other party, April Marie White, was reportedly a problem. White, her arrest report said, became verbally aggressive, making comments that she did nothing wrong. She was advised to place her hands behind her back, to which she initially complied, but then began pulling away while calling and shouting at the deputy, bleep, a 6-letter F word ending in a T.
A homophobic slur, I think we can say.
Yes. Wow. I gave April multiple commands to stop pulling away. However, she continued to keep turning her body to shout obscenities in my face. I attempted to escort her up toward my patrol vehicle when she again pulled away. At this time, I escorted April to the ground in a grassy area and gave her verbal commands to remain in the prone position until assisting units arrived. The report continues on that while attempting to detain her, I could detect a strong odor of alcoholic beverage emitting from her breath. I also discovered 4 empty bottles of vodka and an unopened bottle of rum next to them on the ground.
Why is vodka in quotes and capitalized?
Great question.
Vodka brand vodka.
Mackey, who is 70, and White, who is 44, were charged with exposure of sexual organs for a first offense. White is also charged with resisting arrest without violence and disorderly intoxication. She was arrested back on December 17th as well.
Wow.
Yeah, she's a real piece of work.
Hey, look, Popeyes is always an experience. Every single time you go.
Every single time.
It is an experience. Typically what that means is you might have a 10-minute wait for spicy. Or you might order fries and get mashed potatoes instead. Or like my wife did one time, she ordered tenders and got fish. That's typically what we mean when we describe the Popeyes experience. And by the way, this is not unique to any one specific Popeyes. This is just when you go to Popeyes.
When you go to Popeyes.
It could be in Topeka. It could be in Lawrence. It could be in Salina. It could be in Denver, Colorado. It could be
in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Anywhere you go, the Popeyes experience is the same. It is part and parcel of what you get when you go and get Louisiana Fast.
All right, Dan, what's your story
Hopefully
today?
this guy should have been Louisiana Faster, apparently.
Clearly.
We're going to Iowa City, Iowa. A 3-decade-long tale of identity fraud.
Uh-oh.
We meet 58-year-old Matthew Kierans from Heartland, Wisconsin, who has pled guilty to 1 count of false statement to a National Credit Union Administration insured institution and 1 count of aggravated identity theft. Back in the late 1980s in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Kierans and his identity theft victim worked together at a hot dog cart. For the next 3 decades, Kieran's used the victim's identity in every aspect of his life, obtaining documents and a Kentucky birth certificate in the victim's name. He was hired at an Iowa City hospital as a high-level administrator in 2013, working for the hospital remotely from his Wisconsin home. Officials said Kieran's used his false identity to obtain 8 loans with a value of more than $200,000 from true credit unions in the Northern District of Iowa between August of 2016 and May of 2022. In 2019, the victim, who was homeless at the time, went into a branch of the National Bank in Los Angeles. The victim told employees of the bank he had discovered someone else was using his credit and had accumulated a lot of debt. When the bank manager asked the victim a series of security questions, the victim couldn't answer them. The LAPD contacted Kieran's, who faxed over his phony ID documents, and then the victim was arrested on 2 felony charges.
Oh, my God.
He continued to maintain throughout the criminal proceedings that he was not Kieran's. The California state court judge found the victim not mentally competent to stand trial and threw him to a mental hospital. The victim then pleaded no contest to the felony charges and spent 428 days in jail and 147 days in a mental hospital. Meanwhile, this dude is working remotely for a hospital in Iowa. Finally, the victim contacted the Iowa City Hospital Security Department about Kieran's in 2023. A detective investigated the case and was able ultimately to unravel the identity theft scheme, needing to use DNA evidence to confirm the identities of Kieran's and the victims. Kieran faces a possible maximum sentence of 32 years in prison and a $1.25 million fine.
Wow. That's a lot. I'm not even sure where to begin, in fact, with that one. Holy cow. All right, we got to go quickly here because we do have to get to a break before Michael Swain. Dan, who do you have today?
They had 2 people having sex in front of Popeyes. Man.
Yeah, I got that as well.
That's hard to beat.
You can't beat that.
Jeffrey on YouTube simply called this the Popeyes bangers, which is very funny. Very, very blunt to the point. All
Did you
right.
see what he also said?
Does that beat the wholesaler hitman? That's a good battle.
It is a good battle.
It is a good battle. Yeah, they love that chicken, brother. I gotta go with them. I gotta go with the Popeyes sex act.
I'm with you.
Yep.
I'm going with that one. That's a good start to the week for What Is Wrong With You. That is our new winner, though, the Popeyes sex act. That is gross. That sounds like something on Urban Dictionary. That is our winner today in What Is Wrong With You and our new winner for the week. Coming up after this break, Michael Swain will join us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is our good pal Michael Swain from Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. He covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net. You can find him on Twitter as well at mswain247, and of course all his great work over at 24/7 Sports. Not a whole lot going on, huh, Michael?
No, there's never a dull moment, is there? I was talking with someone the other day, like the whole notion of an off season in college athletics is kind of gone. It's become basically an 11-month-a-year sport or to cover with both football, basketball. So pretty fun times.
Let's get into the news from earlier this week, the multiple reports, and I don't know when this will be officially confirmed, I guess after he signs his letter of intent, but Riley Kugel, formerly of the Florida Gators, 2 years of eligibility remaining. He is the newest Kansas Jayhawk first edition through the portal this year. What can you tell us about the 6'5" guard from the Florida Gators?
Yeah, so it's a really intriguing addition for KU, especially considering the fact it's the first transfer addition for KU this offseason. And you look at what he offers KU, 6'5", really athletic. That's the first thing. If you turn on the video, like that's what really stands out when you first start watching. His ability to get to the rim off the bounce is really impressive. His ability to create separation on the perimeter and get his shot off is something that I don't think anyone on this Kansas team this past year had the ability to do. And I think that's such a huge component for Kansas to add this offseason, just more dynamic scoring ability. I think that was a huge miss for KU this past year where it took, the offense to get guys shots, not guys having individual talent to go and get those shots off. So I think Riley Kugel really will offer KU that. Obviously, there are going to be questions of three-point shooting at face value. If you look at the three-point shooting numbers from this past year, right, shot 31%, but he was chucking early in the season. And when he was a starter, he was taking a lot of shots. And then when he came off the bench in SEC play, all of a sudden the numbers started to look a lot better. And you could probably, or I'll speculate that that's probably due to the fact that, hey, if you're coming off the bench, you're probably playing within a different role than if you were a starter who is coming into the season on NBA draft board. So I think he kind of found himself in the second half of the season at Florida. And for KU, it's going to be about, can you kind of find that potential? Because it's there. He was on NBA draft boards at the beginning of last season and was someone that, people in the NBA have their eyes on. So it's going to come down to KU and really getting the potential out of him and trying to make sure he can reach his ceiling at Kansas.
Do you think that he would have received some sort of promise or, been informed that, hey, you're going to be a starter? Do you think that matters? Is that part of the recruiting pitch? I think fans and media members too, a lot of times focus so intently on, well, who's a starter, who's not a starter, et cetera. Do you think that was part of the pitch at all that, hey, you're going to be our starting two or you're going to play 30 minutes or something like that?
Not really. I think you look at, it's so funny how this works, right? Bill Self kind of starts putting it out there that, hey, we want 7-8 starters on the team next year. And then as soon as KU adds someone, fans are like, oh, who's starting? It's like, didn't Bill Self just tell everybody that like they're trying to have more guys that can start for Kansas than will start for Kansas, right? Like, didn't he just say that? So I think that's the case here where, sure, if Riley Kugel was better than the other transfers KU adds or whoever returns, like he will start. If he's not, he'll still play a lot because I think anyone that's listened to Bill Self talk over the last 2 years, you've heard him talk about the fact that DeJuan Harris is playing 20 minutes, that guys should not be playing 32 to 38 minutes. Like there are just some players that I think he'd like to take some minute loads off of, and that creates opportunities for other players. And I think someone like Riley Kugel, if he doesn't start at Kansas, look, there would not shock me if he ends up finishing games, right, where he's a part of that closing lineup because of the ability for him to go get his own shot, the athleticism, and I think the defensive potential that he has if he can kind of get used to the scheme that KU has. So I'm not going to get caught up in the whole starting thing. I'm Bill Self. We're going to ask him, right, in October at Media Day, hey, how's starters looking? He's going to say, you guys make such a big deal out of this. It's about who finishes the game. And I think that's really going to have to be the way that people have to approach it this year because I think it's just a different type of roster that Bill Self is trying to build.
Who do you think is next on the hot board, if you will? If KU could have their pick of the litter, they're planning their offseason around getting this next guy at the top of the list out of the portal. Who do you think that guy would be?
Well, right now it seems like it's Zeke Mayo, who is, as far as I know, on campus right now for an unofficial visit. He's someone that I think I mentioned, right, the shot creation ability. You see that from what he did at South Dakota State. He really shot the three ball well there, about 6'3", 6'4", someone that could kind of allow Kansas to get maybe a little bit closer to those Devontae Graham, Frank Mason backcourts, where you've got two guys that can handle the ball at all times, and a guy in Zeke Mayo who can space the floor really well. So it seems like KU really is making him a priority. He has an official visit locked in with Oklahoma after the dead period, so we're heading into a dead period later this week, and then next weekend he's expected to head to Oklahoma. So we'll see if that visit ends up happening. But yeah, right now it seems like kind of Zeke Mayo is the next name on the list for KU.
Our guest for Jayhawk Weekly is Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, as he does every Tuesday at this time. Check out Michael's work at Fog.net. Find him on Twitter at mswain247. Michael, is the transfer portal the primary focus right now, or might there be some focus on the high school recruiting class, as the recent decommitment of Liam McNeely leaves him for right now without a home? And I know Kansas had a great deal of interest in his recruitment before he initially committed to Indiana.
Yeah, right now it seems like, the portal is the focus for KU. I think we've seen this right over the last couple of years. Experience wins in college basketball, and that's what KU wants to do, right? I think that's what Bill Self wants to do, is win at the highest level. So right now it seems like portal is the focus. Now, I certainly would not like to say there's no chance that Liam McNeely ends up at Kansas, but I think you're looking at certain dominoes having to fall, and that domino most likely being someone like Johnny Furphy going to the NBA, for that to happen. And look, there's a good chance that UConn's going to make a really big run at McNeely. And then there's also maybe Kentucky that can go and offer a lot of playing time. So I think right now KU's really focused on the portal. And then if a decision from Johnny Furphy comes that is he's going to stay in the NBA draft, then I think KU would probably really crank up the heat on McNeely. So right now, kind of one of those deals where you got to focus on what's in front of you, and what's in front of KU right now is recruiting the portal.
Regarding Johnny Furphy, how likely would you say it is that he is in a Kansas uniform next year at this point?
I'd probably say 50-50. It's kind of one of those things you just kind of got to see. I think probably if you're looking at this from a Kansas perspective, the bummer for KU is the fact that, look, this is one of the worst NBA drafts in a long time. And that means there's opportunity to shoot up draft boards if you have a really good pre-draft process. So I think I totally expect, Furphy to declare and test the waters while maintaining college eligibility. And then from there, it's going to be about the feedback he gets and what people are telling him, right? I think a couple of years ago, Ochai, I think, is probably maybe one of the best examples of someone that tested the waters, got some good feedback, but maybe had the choice of, hey, you can go and maybe be a late first round, early second round pick, or go back to Kansas. And he went back to KU. It worked out for him. I think that's kind of the type of range Furphy looks like he's in right now. So very interested to see how that plays out for him.
What do you think, Michael, the plan will be for Hunter Dickinson? Do you think if he is going to come back that he'll just say, hey, I'm coming back? Or do you think he is going to go and do the workouts and go to the, the combine or the G League combine and work out just to see what his future might look like?
Yeah, I don't see why you wouldn't test, honestly. I think at this point in time, if you're making a decision, hey, do I go back for a COVID year? I think it's always smart to test. And there's no reason why you shouldn't. Go and get the feedback. Start to really continue to build those relationships with NBA people and have them get to know you a little bit and see your game maybe a little bit closer than they would, from just attending a game that maybe you've played in the past, or just, I think having the film that they have available to them. So I don't see why Hunter Dickinson wouldn't test the waters unless he just totally is uninterested in doing the whole traveling to workouts, traveling to the combine, and just kind of being a traveling performer, for lack of a better term, for a couple months. So I'll be very interested to see what he decides to do. But right now, I think he's another one that it makes a lot of sense if he just goes and tests and see what people say. I do still think he'll end up coming back because there's just so much more he can make in college than I think he would probably making in what would likely be a G League contract.
We're joined by Michael Swain of Fog.net 24/7 Sports for Jayhawk Weekly here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Let's transition to football here, as I believe, week and a half away from the spring showcase. But Coach Leipold spoke today, and he said they're going to be without two guys during the rest of spring practice in Lawrence Arnold and Calvin Clements. How much do you think that will hurt their development going into as the spring ball wraps up?
I don't think it really matters with Lawrence. And look, for clarity, he's not practiced one bit. He's been in a boot since the start of spring practice, so he never even took the field for spring ball. With Clements, it's more of a bummer, right? He's someone that would have been competing for the left tackle spot here at the end of spring with Logan Brown. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like Clements will be back at some point in July. So that means, likely ready for the start of preseason camp, which means he still can compete for that starting job. So I think, right, short term, KU's offensive line gets a little bit thinner. And then long term, it doesn't sound like it's having a huge impact, but I think Lance Lapple pretty spot on, right? They're probably not as healthy as they'd like to be at this point in time in spring, but I think it's one of those situations too where you look at veterans and when they do get banged up in spring, you're more likely to shut them down and just say, hey, let's not risk it. Let's make sure you're ready to go in preseason camp. And that also creates opportunities for young guys. You look at Lawrence Arnold missing spring and Luke Grimm has missed a couple practices. Like that creates opportunities for, Doug Emilian, Keaton Kubeka, Shiraz Buncombe, like some of those younger guys. And so I think it's one of those where if you want to do the whole spin zone game, you totally can, and I won't blame you. So I think right now it's one of those situations where KU is making the best with, obviously it's a contact sport, collision sport, so guys are going to get banged up, and they're making the best with the guys that are available.
Michael, how big of a deal is it to not have Matt Lubick coming back next year for the KU offense?
Yeah, I think it's really important. He's someone that I think behind the scenes is maybe as key as a staff member as KU has that's not really front facing. Obviously, it's great news that he is able to be physically healthy enough, right, after, I believe, battling leukemia, that he is able to go and take the Nevada OC job. Like, obviously, that is so great for him that he's able to do that. For KU, it's a bummer, though. He's someone that played a big role in some of that quarterback option run game that you've seen from KU over the last couple of years. So he's a staff member that I think is really well respected within the building. It is a big loss, and I think KU now is going to have to, continue to advance. And with Jeff Grimes, he's brought in some of his own analysts that are familiar with him. So it's kind of just that constant evolution you have to have in college football.
Last thing, and talking about Calvin Clements here a moment ago, how has Daryl Agpalsa really stepped in and meshed with the guys so far?
It seems pretty good. As Lance Leipold was talking today, you could see Agpalsa in the background kind of just chatting with some of the offensive linemen, working on some small stuff and just talking. So I think he's a little bit of a different coach than Scott Fuchs. He'll get after guys, and I think sometimes that can be, it's obviously good or bad. You can spin whatever you want, but I think having a different voice can help sometimes. And it's watching them go through drills, it seems like they're doing some different stuff. And I still think they're base philosophy-wise, right? They cross-train. They work with the outside zone, the wide zone stuff. So philosophy-wise, not a lot has changed, but just a different voice. And it seems like he's coaching the players hard, and the players are liking it.
Michael Swain covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Go be a VIP. It is worth it. You get all sorts of great inside scoops about what is going on with KU basketball and football, including some very intriguing notes on the basketball roster just a little bit ago this afternoon. You can follow Michael on Twitter as well, at mswain247. Appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Sounds great, guys. Talk to you next week.
That is Michael Swain from Fog.net. And I tell you every week, and I don't just say it because Michael's a friend of ours, the stuff he's got over at 24/7 is really, really good if you are a KU fan and want to get the latest info on what the roster looks like, who might come back, the targets, who is recruiting Zeke Mayo right now for the KU staff. A pretty big deal as they try to bring the Lawrence native back home to KU. We owe you one more commercial break. We'll come on back, wrap up this shortened edition of 580 Sports Talk with the final word after these messages. Let's wrap up 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll be on a little bit late tomorrow after the Royals and Orioles play, assuming they play. Weather's going to be nasty in Baltimore tomorrow. So let's wrap up this edition of the show, guys, with a final word. Let's go to Spencer first today.
I don't really have a specific final word except for, did you guys see the viewing numbers for the Iowa LSU game last night?
Yeah, it just broke moments ago.
12.3 million viewers, the most watch ever NCAA women's basketball game ever.
That's crazy.
I believe it.
Deserved, too, because that game ruled.
Yeah, peak audience of 16 million. Just for comparison's sake, the Duke North Carolina State game averaged 15 million viewers, and that was network television on a Sunday afternoon.
Very impressive.
Monster number.
And this
very
was
cool.
a Monday evening.
Monday evening on cable. Yeah.
Like not late, not 8 p.m. I mean, it was on like, I mean, you think West Coast, they were what, 5 o'clock time? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Final word for me is that I think baseball has juiced the baseball again. I think that the game balls are back to acting like Titleist Pro V1s. And I think it's a bad thing. But if that's what it's going to be, then you better hit the ball in the air. And so far, the Royals are hitting the ball in the air more than all but 5 other teams in Major League Baseball. That's a good thing, even if the ball isn't juiced. And I'm wrong. Hitting the ball in the air is good because hitting the ball in the air gets you home runs, and home runs get you runs. And I want to see this team score some runs because they might have to outscore their bullpen a little bit this year.
Yeah, my final word is about the Royals as well. Early returns on the offense, more good than bad. Starting pitching, certainly more good than bad. But you've got to be able to play a full game. That has been something the Royals have struggled with mightily for years, playing a full 9 innings consistently. Bullpen's got to work out those kinks. I know it's early. We barely have a sample size at all so far this year. But if you can work out those issues, this team is going to be pretty frisky, but you got to be able to finish off the 9th inning. We're back tomorrow after Royals baseball, and Royals Orioles is coming up next as well. For Spencer, for Dan, I'm Brendan. This has been 580 Sports Talk.